Hello, Internet. This is the Ford Brothers, and we're going to be talking about the Nolan Batman trilogy. All right. So, Chris, you recently just watched Batman Begins, or at least part of it. Um,
It's almost done.
oh, okay, you're watching it right now.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, but we wanted to talk about. So, I actually just recently rewatched all these myself. Watched Batman Begins a little bit
Hello,
ago.
Internet.
This
Whoa,
is
the
I'm
Ford
hearing.
Brothers, and
We're
we're
going to be talking
Hold on, hold
about
on,
the
hold on. Something's
Nolan
going on.
Batman trilogy. All right.
I'm hearing
So
myself on something.
Chris, you've
There we go. Let's get rid of that. Okay.
yeah,
So
and
how long ago did you watch Batman Begins?
Batman Begins was I think about a week ago,
Okay,
I
it's
think.
so it's still fresh in your mind.
And then I watched Dark Knight just a couple days ago. And then I watched Dark Knight Rises again last night. Now, Dark Knight Rises is definitely the one I'm the least familiar with. I saw it in theaters, I think once, and then I bought it on Blu-ray when it came out, and probably watched it once or twice since then. Um,
Okay.
so and I did watch it again last night. So, but it is definitely the one I'm least familiar with. Obviously, it's also the newer of the three. It's crazy to me that
Yeah.
when did that came out 2012.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me that's
That's 10
already
years ago.
yeah that's just crazy to me. Um,
That's
so I,
probably the one I'm the least familiar with too, but I think I've seen it a little more than you have.
yeah,
I
okay.
think I saw it a few times in the theaters.
Hmm. Pretty sure I only saw it once in
But
theaters,
anyway,
maybe
we can
twice.
get into Batman Begins
Yeah.
because I got it going on the screen and
Okay.
I actually took some notes.
Hey, all right. Maybe one of these days I'll
They're
take notes.
way out of order,
Yeah.
so I'm going to be looking around these for a
Well,
little bit, but at least I know what I want to talk about
okay. Okay, so that's good. A little prepared.
for the most part.
And I think
I
later on I'll start making like little notes as well, or like points of discussion or questions to ask and things like that to kind of help these videos along.
Yeah, that's we don't need to like outline what we're going to talk about exhaustively or anything, but little quick notes.
Yeah. Well, what's
Um,
your general thoughts of Batman Begins? We can start there.
Batman Begins. Well, I think like I told you, I think it's as far as Batman movies go, I think it's resting just about at where the Batman is, as far
Okay.
as how much I like it. I
Okay.
remember when I first saw it. I think I saw it twice in the theaters. Um, and I remember this being more of a Batman movie than like Batman '89, which was still the best Batman movie that we had at that point.
Right.
But I think I still liked that movie a little bit more. I still liked Batman '89 more than this one, although this was the first time that we actually saw like a proper serious Batman movie that wasn't just like a comic book movie that was still really heavily um, kind of like still connected to the Adam West Batman. The '89 Batman was still kind of like still kind of connected to that mythology and everything involving that, but this one we finally got away from that and it's a lot more serious.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And definitely by the time
that's
Batman
what
Forever.
this film has the most going for it, I would say,
Okay.
is that it brought that to the series.
Okay. Yeah, I think the 89 Batman was deliberately trying to go away from the Adam West as well. And he's trying to be more true to the comic books that were coming out at the time because the 80s comic books had a darker tone to it.
Yeah, there. I mean, there was just like the Joker is kind of ish. He's kind of like there are elements to the Joker that are like paying homage to the Caesar Romero one.
Yeah.
He even
That's
says,
true. That's
"Where
true.
does he get the?" I mean, it's definitely it took a lot more inspiration from the Dark Knight Returns comic book, and I think so. Yeah, that's where it's
Whereas
at.
whereas I think as those first like four movies, if you consider the first like the 89 through Batman and Robin, if you kind of think of those as one series, is kind of how I've
Yeah, I
always
mean
thought of them.
they
And
got
they
more and more Adam West as they went
Yeah,
along.
exactly. And that's what I was gonna note was Batman Forever has a lot of Adam West isms in it, the Adam West Batman,
Yeah,
and like well, almost playing, but more as playing what's the word there? Homage?
Homage,
Yeah. Like holy metal something
Holy
Batman.
Rusted Metal.
Yeah, and he's like,
Yeah,
what? And he's like, it's there's holes in this rusted mountain. He's like, oh,
but they didn't even need to. They didn't even need to like make that reference because the rest of the movie was so campy.
right, right. And so whereas Batman and Robin, I feel like I was almost straight up right on par of Adam
Yeah,
West's
it
Batman.
was like
Like it was
a
just crazy.
modern technology Adam
Yeah,
West movie.
yeah. So, yeah, I remember. So with that being what Batman was at the time, before Batman Begins, the last Batman movie was Batman and Robin. And I remember when I first heard about Batman Begins, I was like, another one?
Oh, really?
Because I didn't realize they were rebooting it. And I even remember the first time I saw
Uh,
the trailer, in the first trailer, it takes a while before you realize it's a Batman movie that it's advertising. Because you see, I remember different shots of like Bruce. It's a lot of it from the beginning of the movie where
I
Bruce is
don't think
like,
I remember.
yeah, like one of the shots is like Bruce like coming over the mountain and he sees the training site of the League of Shadows. Except for you don't know that in the trailer.
Uh-huh.
You just see a man come, and then you see him training with Liam Neeson and stuff like that. And that's what a lot of the trailer was in the beginning. And then it's not until you hear Liam Neeson say Mr. Wayne or Bruce Wayne or something like that, like he does in one of the opening scenes in Batman Begins, when he's in prison, that you realize that it's advertising a Batman movie. And I remember thinking, "Oh, this looks interesting," until I found out it was a Batman movie. I'm like, "Oh, really?"
Uh,
But then it ended up being really good. And it was like, okay, I mean, it's definitely meant to reboot the franchise in a sense.
yeah, didn't it look way different than Batman and Robin though?
Oh, way different. But the fact that like that was still in my mind as
Hmm.
Batman, like I feel like
I
I
think
was getting tricked with like, oh, this is good. Oh, it's Batman. Batman's not a good movie.
I think it had been like so that you probably saw that commercial in like 2005. The movie came out in what,
Oh, five.
2005 or six?
Yeah,
Five?
five. I just
Okay,
looked it
so
up.
you probably saw that in 2004,
Hmm.
which was just a little over 5 years after Batman and Robin. So that bad taste is still in your
Yeah,
mouth.
yeah, yeah.
I
Still,
don't know
still
if you
there.
remember this, but I don't remember that commercial that you're talking about.
Okay.
But I remember another one, the one that was way before I think way before they were even making the Batman movie, was the Scooby Doo trailer, and it's slowly zooming in in like this dark mansion with like thunder going off. He's got the ears and everything, and we
Hmm.
think it's Batman. And I was getting excited. I was like, "Oh, okay, cool! Finally, a new Batman movie." Kind of like the opposite of what you were thinking.
Uh,
Um,
but then it being
uh,
Scooby Doo.
but it ended up being Scooby Doo. I
uh,
think they did that. I think because I
they must
Scooby
have
Doo is
come out
also
around the same
Warner
time.
Brothers. I think.
Yeah,
I think they did that to like test what audiences were thinking about, like how where Batman was in the minds of the audience after Batman and Robin.
maybe at that point they already knew they were making the Batman movie, and the word had already gotten out.
Like,
It's just we were kids at the time. Well, I guess
well, they
I was
had
high
this.
school.
It's like a cash cow property. That first,
Yeah,
uh, those first three Batman movies made a whole lot of money. Probably Batman and Robin did too. I don't know.
yeah, I don't know
It
either.
probably got a bunch of bad reviews. I don't, but
Yeah,
Batman Forever did well, so usually the next movie after that does decent.
yeah,
But it
yeah,
probably got just terrible reviews.
yeah.
Anyway, we're not talking about Batman Begins a whole lot.
No, well, I bring it up because I always like to think about like what were my initial thoughts like about the movie before it came out, and I just kind of
Right, and
reflecting on that.
a lot of this movie has a lot to do with where what we were thinking about Batman at the time. I guess I was ready for a new Batman
Yeah.
because I'd always wanted, and then they were even doing the two villains that I wanted out of my next Batman movie,
Okay.
Scarecrow, and I didn't know
Irresolute.
who I didn't know his name, but
Yeah.
I was like, who's that guy who doesn't wear a mask? He wears green and he fights Batman in the cartoon. That
Okay.
should be the villain. And then
Yeah.
he ended up being the villain. I had that thought like in the middle of the theater when I was like first seeing it for the
Oh,
first
okay.
time. I remember because I knew that Scarecrow was the bad guy,
Mhm.
but I knew there had to be another villain.
Hmm.
But I just didn't know his name, and they didn't say anything about him. There was no like he wasn't in any commercials. I probably because they were waiting for the whole Liam Neeson trick.
Yeah,
What's a
yeah,
really
yeah. I don't think. I mean, I don't remember. I have to go back and watch the trailers to see if they kept the whole Ra's al Ghul aspect.
I think
Because even
so
in the movie, you don't realize Liam Neeson's Ra's al Ghul until the
until the
end of the
very end.
movie.
Yeah,
Until then, you thought it was I forget his name. He's a fairly famous actor.
in Watanabe, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Him.
And in the comic books, I don't know a whole lot about Batman's background, but I think in the comic books, Batman officially was trained by this guy named Ducard, and that's who Liam Neeson is pretending to be in the beginning.
Oh, okay.
That's what he tells his name. I am merely Ducard or
Oh,
something
okay. Okay. I
in
never
the prison.
quite paid attention to what his fake name was in the movie.
So I guess
And
Batman fans were supposed to be tricked by that.
okay. Yeah, I mean, and I didn't expect it. I do remember that being kind of like a surprise that he was kind of Ra's al Ghul.
The beard should have given it away.
Sure, sure, but at the same time, you already had the person who was named Ra's al Ghul in the beginning of the movie,
Who had a
and
very
who
similar
had a
beard.
very similar beard. So he was clearly like his apprentice, if you will. And so you just think, okay, kind of like the Jedi braid kind of thing. He's just kind of mimicking his master, whoever he is. So I did, yeah. So I do remember it's like, oh, okay. And for me, that was kind of a neat way of to play on the immortality aspect of Ra's al Ghul with it being still realistic, of not
Uh-huh.
actual immortality, not actual some
Yeah.
weird magic power thing. Pool
Is
the
that what
la
they were going for? Because I've never actually known.
I think
Like,
so
does this
because even at the end of the movie when he confronts Bruce in his house at the end of the movie,
right?
he kind of says
Just
something
past
along
that
those
moment.
lines of something about or immortality.
Right. I can't quite. I know the line you're talking about.
Yeah, so it's kind of playing to that, and then it plays again to that in Dark Knight Rises because he starts to kind of see Ra's al Ghul. I know we're skipping a movie here, um,
Hmm.
but it connects with Ra's al Ghul and this idea of how they were kind of still playing again homage to this idea of the immortality aspect that Ra's al Ghul is known for, but being real. In Dark Knight Rises,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
it's almost like a vision that he's
In like that
communicating with.
very realistic Christopher Nolan way.
Yeah, so I appreciated that because it still fit the genre of this Batman universe.
Ultra realism.
Yeah, yeah, it is
Yeah.
very very real. Um,
And Ra's al Ghul is minus that whole immortality aspect. He's probably one of the best villains for Nolan to do for like a Nolan movie because
yeah,
he doesn't have like I mean, Scarecrow has a mask, but he doesn't have like that a whole like comic booky gimmick or anything. He's just a guy.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, so let's talk about Batman, like the Batman in this Batman movie.
Okay,
How do you feel about Bat?
Christian Bale.
Should we start with Bruce Wayne or Batman or like
Well, for me, it's kind of the
where
same
would you want to?
though. I really
Yeah.
like. I'll just kind of bring it from the Christian Bale perspective
Okay.
aspect and kind of touch on both. Um, and it kind of touches on the whole movie. I really liked the movie for what it was as a origin story because up until this point, there really hadn't been a Batman focused movie. Even the 89 kind of does, but it's more like a side story.
Yeah.
Um and Batman Forever attempted to, but a lot of that element was taken out of the movie, and even that was still kind of a side story where
Hmm.
this was the story, how Batman
Right.
begins, right? Hence the name. And um and so I
So
really
incidentally, we get a lot of Bruce Wayne.
so we get a lot of just how he becomes Batman as part of the narrative. And for me, it was really interesting. I liked seeing him kind of training. Like, I love the training him with Liam Neeson on the ice and stuff like that. And just his whole demeanor of how he just wants revenge and whatnot. So kind of similar to the Batman, where he kind of learns he has to be a little bit more than just revenge. Um, and and so then from there he
Oh,
split.
hold on a second.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm on a video call with Brandon right now. Did you need something? Oh, okay. Never
and then
mind.
and so then after all that training, which I really appreciated how he is playing Bruce here, because this isn't like the Bruce Wayne, like fake Bruce Wayne yet. This is who he really is still as Bruce Wayne. He's not
Oh
quite
yeah.
Batman,
Uh-huh.
but this is the real Bruce Wayne. And and I like how he played that. And then as he begins to re-enter society, when he returns back to Gotham, then he realizes he has to kind of split the two, and he has to kind of, and he even in this movie, he in Batman Begins, he kind of has to learn how to put on this mask when he's not wearing a mask. And that's what he is Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne is his mask. That's not who he really is. This Bruce Wayne person, who he is in Gotham. This
Hmm.
eccentric billionaire person. And he even tries to tell that to Rachel. It's like, this isn't who I really am, right? And Rachel just kind of shoos him off. So I really liked how Christian Bale was able to go from just complete like revenge focused Bruce Wayne, and then he was able to transition into this other Bruce Wayne that's really a fake Bruce Wayne, and be Batman. So I really liked his Bruce Wayne. He's probably, I'd have to go back and watch the 89 with Michael Keaton again, but just thinking about it right now, he might be my favorite Bruce Wayne of the Batmans.
I think I would agree.
And the way he really plays it up. Now, I am kind of recalling Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne, and just like how he first introduces himself to Vicky Vale in his own party, and she even asks who's Bruce Wayne, and he
Yeah.
kind of like, he feigns he doesn't know and whatnot, and I like that. So
Yeah. He's a good Bruce Wayne, but he's like already really established. He's
yeah,
already got the whole Bruce Wayne persona down.
right,
At
yeah.
that point,
So
it's really fun to watch him go through the transformation, as you said.
yeah, so that's what I liked about
That's
this one. So I really
yeah.
like his I like
I still
I
like
like
Michael
both.
Keaton, but I still like Michael Keaton a whole lot as
Hmm.
Bruce Wayne. But this this Bruce Wayne is a lot more like he's got that brooding aspect down that
Yeah.
I like.
Yeah, he has like, there's like almost three versions of him. There's him in the public,
Hmm.
and there he's not really so much brooding. There he's like really playing up this other other demeanor, this fake Bruce Wayne. Then he has the real Bruce Wayne when he's like with Alfred, um, and then there he's a little bit more broody. And then here there's the Batman version of him. And I think he does, yeah. So I really like him. Overall is my comment on that.
How do you feel about the growly bat voice? I think we talked about it last time, but I don't know how you
Um,
land on it.
yeah, I don't remember talking about it last time. But in Batman Begins, I didn't mind it. I don't even really remember minding it at all until Dark Knight. In Dark Knight, it seemed very noticeable. Whereas in Batman Begins, it wasn't, for me. It just wasn't as, I don't know. I just didn't notice it as much.
I think I had a very similar experience as you did. I don't think I even really noticed it until the second movie.
Yeah,
But it really doesn't bother me. A lot of it bugs a lot of people, but I just go by if I'm taking out of the movie, and I'm not. It just kind of blends in with everything else for me. There's only like a few points where it goes a little too far
yeah,
for
yeah.
me,
I
but
think so.
it's
But
mostly
mostly
like what
in,
he's saying. It's not the voice.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
well,
In the very first movie, remember when he gets sprayed by Scarecrow and
okay,
he's on the ground and he's still talking in that voice, but he's all like panic and he's going into his communicator, Alfred, Alfred. It
okay.
makes me kind of smile every time.
Oh,
But for the rest of the movie, for the rest of the whole first movie, I don't really mind it. And then
yeah,
there's just a few other times in the other movies, but it doesn't bug me. I don't know why people are. I really don't get why people
yeah.
complain
It
about it
doesn't
so
really
much.
bug me. The only time, well, I guess some people were saying that they were just having a hard time understanding what he was saying because he was
Oh,
being so
okay. Well, I
like
never had that
gargly.
issue.
And I think there were some points in Dark Knight where it just stood out to me a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, it never to the point to where I
He's got a little bit more
didn't
dialogue
like it.
as Batman in Dark Knight.
Yeah. Okay, but Batman Begins. Um,
Yeah, yeah. We are talking about the
that's
whole
true.
trilogy,
That's true.
but
Um,
yeah, we can focus on Batman Begins. And yeah, you're right. This whole first movie, The Growling, is probably the least is it's where it's the least of an issue.
Yeah.
I don't really know why.
I think he emphasizes it more in the second one. Because even in the third one, I don't mind it as much.
I guess it's also that he's talking more as Batman in the other ones, and here in this first one, it's a little bit more concise.
Yeah, he's
It's a
really
little
only
bit more
Batman the last half. But, maybe last 2/3. I forget the time framing.
right.
Whereas in Dark Knight, he's Batman a lot in that movie.
Yeah,
He's
yeah, pretty
barely
much the
he's
entire
barely
time.
Bruce Wayne in Dark Knight. Um, okay. But yeah, no, for me, so what are some things you like about Batman Begins, or what were some of your notes?
Well, let's see. I mentioned. Um, I already mentioned something. Uh, well, I mentioned that I like both of the choice of the villains.
Okay.
Um, um,
Now, as I recall, though, you were kind of disappointed with Scarecrow.
I was disappointed actually with a little bit with both of them,
Okay.
mostly because okay, one of the main issues with the entire series, mostly in the first one has the worst action in all of them. I don't really enjoy the action in these Batman Begins.
Hmm. Okay. Are you still there? Oh, did my internet go out?
Which
Hold on, Chris. Hold on. I don't know if you can hear me, but
is
I can't hear you.
the
All right, what is going on here? All right, Chris. Where's my volume on this? There we go. Chris. Okay, so I think it's on your end. I'm not sure if you can hear me, Chris. You seem to have broken out. Okay, so we lost Chris. So I'll try to get him back here. All right, so we did lose the call. Not sure what's exactly is going on here. So if you just bear with me as I try to figure this out. All right, looks like he's back. Chris, you there?
yeah,
Okay.
I guess
Yeah,
that's
it went out
yeah,
a
my
bit
internet.
ago.
Yeah, I think that was my internet that went out for a second.
Okay. My internet does that from time to time as well. Yeah, so it
Still
went
part
out.
of the same-
Say again?
Is this still part of the same feed stream, or is this going to be like a second video or something?
No, no, no. Yeah, I never stopped streaming, so it's all still streaming.
Okay, cool. Okay. I don't remember where I was,
Well,
but I can work my way back up there.
yeah, yeah. So actually, from the beginning, because as soon as you started, it broke out.
Oh,
So
okay.
talking about your
Get my lighting
disappointment,
back.
your areas of disappointment with the two villains is what you were about to
Uh,
talk about when it
I
cut out.
think okay. I'll try to work my way back up to that. This is let me talk about how I feel about Batman in this movie.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so I think this is my favorite portrayal of Bruce Wayne.
Okay.
Like I said, I think because it's we really get to see him like from the ground up, build up what it means to be Batman, and he's like discovering who he is, and it's really what I've always wanted from like a Bruce Wayne story.
Okay.
And so I like. Okay, where did I take my notes? Okay, yeah. Okay, so we really follow Bruce Wayne before and after his parents' death, and we really get to see what it does to him. I like I like seeing him go through that internal struggle when he's at the court and he's contemplating killing the guy who killed his parents,
Yeah.
and then we he doesn't get to do it, and then that affects him, and then after that he even goes to confront Falcone, and then he realizes
Oh,
that he's totally way out of his game, and like not even his money has anything could help him, and then that's when he goes off and then becomes Batman, learning how to fight and everything, and I like that slow build. Um, Although once Bruce Wayne comes back, some of those elements are a little bit rushed. I do like his portrayal of Bruce Wayne, um, but like when he's trying to be like uh, eccentric playboy, a lot of those things are a little rushed. Like
oh,
when he
okay.
first shows up in that boardroom when he first appears. I don't remember the guy's name. The guy who's running got the guy
Yeah,
who's
yeah.
running, and he's like playing golf with that secretary. I would
Right.
have liked to. I mean, it's a really small nitpick, but I would have liked to see some of the charm that made her get into like start playing around with him, rather than it's just oh it's Bruce Wayne, so she's just gonna be we got to show him playing around with women.
Hmm.
And it's the same thing with those women in the restaurant,
Right.
or
Now,
they're just there. It's
I
a lot
felt
of like
like
it's
I
kind of like Christopher Nolan's style to just have like quick things just kind of shoved in there for the
well,
sake of thematic purposes, but I want a little bit more meat on the bones
for
in those
me,
moments.
I actually liked the way he did it because one of the things because he doesn't do that right away, even after he comes back. For me, that was a build, and there's a bit of dialogue between him and Alfred where he says, "Well, what does a rich guy even do?" Because Alfred even says, "Hey, you need to have a social life, otherwise people are gonna like
Yeah,
figure out you're Batman." Essentially, is what he gets him at. And he's like, "So you need to have some kind of social life as Bruce Wayne." And so for me, that was enough build to him kind of figuring out to put on this persona. Because he even then asks, "Well, what does a person like me do?" It's like I don't even know because that hasn't been my whole life. Like I've been through all this other stuff. And
the
so
part
then
you're talking about is actually one of the parts I managed to pay attention to.
yeah, and so then that's when Alfred says, I forget exactly what he says, but something about like cars, girls, and whatnot, and buy things that they're
Buying
not supposed to
things
buy
that
stuff.
aren't for
Yeah,
sale.
yeah.
Yeah,
And so for me, that was enough build. Just that dialogue between him and Alfred, it was the thing that gave him the idea in starting to figure out how to be that Bruce Wayne that we're then introduced to
hmm
in that secretary, in that board meeting scene.
I
So for
could see
me,
that.
I that was sufficient for me.
Yeah, that works, especially in like service of the story. I I'm nitpicking about, and it's definitely a nitpick, but I'm nitpicking. I'm not about not being able to see a lot of the charm of Bruce Wayne, like what he's learned
Hmm.
that brings us to those moments. It's a really small nitpick, but
Okay.
um, since we're talking about Bruce Wayne,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, but this movie even thought to do it, which in the Tim Burton movies, it's really only like his. We only get to see him with his like James Bond girl of the week, Vicky
Yeah.
Vale, and then Selena Kyle.
Right. Well,
Um,
and then Nicole Kidman.
Chase Meridian.
Yeah.
I don't even know her in the comic books.
I'm pretty sure she's the made up character for the movie.
That makes
Um,
sense.
and I don't
Sounds
think
like a
he
made
has
up
a love
character.
interest in. I guess Poison Ivy, kind of.
There is a woman in Batman and Robin, but she leaves halfway through. She has
I
like two lines.
I don't remember because at that point the appeal is supposed to be more like Uma Thurman's Poison Ivy
Yeah,
and
she
Alicia
kind of takes
Silverstone's
over.
Batgirl. Both of those are supposed to be kind of the appeal. but
Oh, that's
neither of
right.
them haven't like are really connected with Bruce. Well, not romantically.
Um,
But anyway,
going back to Batman Begins,
yeah.
one of the other things I like about it, I guess this is kind of halfway between Batman and Bruce Wayne, but we really get to see him do a whole lot more detective stuff, which is sorely missed in the Tim Burton movies. The Tim
Right.
Burton movies
Didn't
does like
really.
no, he's a superhero. He's not a detective.
The only and I do want to do a whole other video. I was thinking that'd be our next video is just on the two Burton movies. Um, so I do want to talk about those, but the only detective
I don't
thing
know about the next ones. Let's get away from Batman for a little bit.
I don't know. I feel like April could be like Batman month, but anyway, we could discuss that later. But the only thing I could even really remember him doing any detective work on in the Burton movies was when he kind of figures out the chemical components to Joker's stuff, and then
Oh
he
yeah,
gives that to the media to say, "Hey, don't combine these chemicals together because that's what's causing
uh-huh.
this."
You're right.
And now I don't know if we see him like figure it out, but the implication is he figured it out. It's been a long time
Oh,
since I've seen the
what
movie.
happens is he's like he sees. I don't know what happens, but Bruce Wayne says, "Hey Alfred, let's go shopping," and then I think it's the museum scene,
Okay.
and then that's after the fight scene after the museum. Oh no, he,
No, we don't have
yeah,
to
yeah,
get
yeah.
into it too
He
much.
takes
I
he
was just
takes the
noting that's the only detective time I could think of for those movies. Whereas, yeah,
yeah.
this one they really do. I think we were really just trying to play to all the different aspects of Batman,
Mhm.
um, which is what you were saying.
Well, I like that we see him start doing like detective work. How he's listening in on people from afar, and then um, how he's slowly building this relationship with Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah.
And this is probably the best of the Nolan movies with Gordon as a character. He
Okay.
probably has the most to do in this one. In the other ones, he becomes a little bit more Pat Hingled as the series goes along. I'd say, but in this one, he's more of a sort of a closer to year one kind of thing, which I think is what the Batman was going for,
Yeah, yeah, I agree. That's what the
right by
Batman was
year
going for.
one.
Um,
But this one, Batman Begins, um, the relationship between Batman and Commissioner Gordon, who isn't commissioner yet, is probably the strongest of the three. Probably my favorite
um,
between
see,
the two.
I don't know if I agree. I think his relationship with Gordon was stronger in The Dark Knight. Um,
You probably have some good. There's probably you could probably make a good case there.
Yeah, because they have I don't know. He was when you have the whole bat signal aspect of it that isn't started until the Dark Knight. Here is where they form that relationship, which is what you were getting at.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, and it's a great moment when he's got the stapler up to his
yeah,
back and then he runs away.
right.
And he's not really good at being Batman yet, so he bangs himself on those like stairs or whatever those are. That's a good moment. When he jumps from roof to roof, doesn't quite make it.
I don't quite remember that, but okay.
It's right after
It's like when he leaves Gordon's office.
yeah, for the very first time.
Yeah, I don't know. I must have. I don't know. I don't quite remember that, but I might have been distracted at that moment. Okay.
I moving away from Bruce Wayne a little bit, moving on to Batman. So I definitely love like the more detective-y stuff.
Mhm.
And while I hate this bat suit, this is probably my least favorite bat suit, minus the one from Batman and Robin with the nipples. I absolutely love the idea where he can use his cape to glide. I
Yeah.
love that this movie made that up, and I miss it in every other version of Batman where he doesn't get to use his cape where he doesn't get to use his cape to glide. It's such a cool Batman thing.
Oh yeah, yeah. Especially it just reminds me of like the Arkham games, gliding
I'm
around.
pretty sure they got that from
Okay.
Batman Begins,
Oh,
or
maybe.
from this series.
Yeah.
I mean, I can only imagine because this is the first time I've seen it. He's usually just using his grappling hook or something else.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, these movies definitely predate the Arkham games. At least this movie in particular
Hmm.
predates.
There's actually a blah, blah. There's actually a Batman Begins video game
Oh, okay.
that's I've never played it, but it looks bad.
Oh, yeah. I
Probably
never.
not terrible,
Um.
but it predates Arkham Asylum.
Hmm. Um.
So
So.
yeah, I hate the way the Batsuit looks. It's all fabricy, and the hood looks like it's a little too connected to the cape, and the cape
Hmm.
looks all wrong. But I love what they did with the actual usage of the cape.
Okay.
That was one
Yeah.
of my notes.
That's interesting to me because I never had that issue. I never one. I barely even really noticed the difference between the bat suit in this one versus the next one.
Mm.
I'd have to see them side by side, I guess, because it just wasn't something that stood out. So I had no issue with his bat suit on this one. I remember you mentioning that before.
Mm.
But even watching it again recently, it didn't really. There was nothing about this particular that bat suit that really stood out
Probably
to
just a
me.
personal thing,
Yeah,
taste.
yeah. That's just yeah, it's just interesting.
Do you
Um,
miss the yellow on the chest?
I
I,
do, but that's I think more for nostalgia purposes
me too.
or
Yeah.
nostalgia reasons. Okay. Um, and then you're saying about the villains.
Okay. Yeah. So Ra's al Ghul was basically handled well. The only reason I think I wish it could have been done a little bit better. The only way I wish it could have been done a little bit better is the fight scenes. They're just shaky cam is not interesting. It's not compelling cinema. I hate shaky cam. Everyone hates shaky cam,
Yeah.
and this film is filled with a lot of it. Batman Begins has so much shaky cam.
Hmm.
So I
Again,
hate.
that's
I
not
don't like
something
the
I pay
fight.
attention to. But go on.
Okay, you know
And
in Batman.
I typically don't like shaky cam either. Like in the Bourne movies, always bugs me.
Yeah, there you go.
In especially Bourne Supremacy. Um,
I've
just the
seen them all, but I can't remember.
I just remember the shaky cam in that one. It's like I have no coherency on what's going on right now,
Right.
just
I
because it's
want to
so
know. I want to
shaky.
be able to know who's punching who and how
Um,
hard.
but in Batman Begins, I don't know. For me, I didn't really think of it as shaky cam. I maybe now if I go watch it and you saying that, I'll probably notice it, and now it will bug me. But it hadn't really bugged me before. And for me, I like the action in this one quite a bit.
Really?
For me the weakest action movie of these is Dark Knight Rises.
Oh, really? I think that has the best fight scene,
There is I like the
but I
fight
don't. I
scenes that
can't
are in
vouch for the
it,
rest.
but there's like
Uh-huh.
only two.
I yeah. I can't vouch for the rest of the fight scenes, but I like when he fights Bane.
Yeah, there's the sewer fight. Yeah, both times he fights Bane, I like. I do like those fight scenes, and I think those are
I'll
good
get to those.
fight scenes. Yeah, we'll
I
get there.
definitely have a lot to say
But
about
I feel
those.
like overall, um, I like the fight scenes better in Batman Begins, mostly probably just because there was more of it.
Mm.
Um,
Well, there are two main instances where I think the shaky cam is it goes too far for me.
okay,
On the docks when he first shows up as Batman, just before
okay,
he captures Falcone,
you're right, right. I
and
remember
he's
that.
fighting all those thugs. It's a little too like you can't see who's getting hit, what's going on, and then the final fight scene on the train. I don't really.
hmm,
I can't see who's punching who. I can't really tell what's going on. You get an idea of what's going on, but
hmm.
I want to see these punches land. I want to see them connect, and I don't want to see the camera shaking everywhere. And that also it's kind of intercut with Gary Oldman in the Batmobile
Yeah,
making funny faces doing stuff.
yeah.
So just cinema wise, I would have preferred a nice clean fight scene between Batman and Ra's al Ghul.
Okay,
That's what the audience needed.
I guess.
On the other side of that, I really do like the sword fight on the snow and the ice.
Yeah,
That's a
and
good
that's what
fight
I was
scene.
gonna bring up because when I think of for I guess that's the first thing I think of when I think of a fight scene in this movie
Oh, well,
is
that's the best one.
it's the training montage, which isn't really a fight scene, but it still kind of is. Um,
Yeah, 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 exactly.
and then
It
his
counts as
actual
a fight
fight
scene.
scene after his trial, right after his whole League of Shadows trial thing, and he does a little cut on the shoulder against the ninjas to trick,
Hmm.
what we don't know is Ra's al Ghul, and then he gets applauded, and then he's supposed to execute the guy, and then he throws the thing and it catches the home on fire and all that,
That fight
and
scene
that
is
whole
good
fight
too.
scene, I really enjoy. Um,
That's I have something to say about that.
okay.
That's a good fight scene. It's a really good fight scene. I really like that. I just I I don't understand how fake Ra's al Ghul dies because it looks like I could take those wood pieces falling on me. You know what I'm talking about? It doesn't
Yeah.
look like what happens to him kills him. Like
Technically,
suddenly
we
he's
don't know because all we know is Liam Neeson came back. We
no,
technically don't know what
no, no,
happened to
no.
that dude.
Remember when he fights fake or the first Ra's al Ghul and then they're fighting and then explosion happens and then pieces of wood falls on him
Sure.
and then he saves Liam Neeson.
Right, right, right.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah,
I'm saying that the practical pieces of wood that fell on the first Ra's al Ghul, it doesn't look like it could kill a person.
yeah.
That's it's another nitpick. I'm just I just wanted to bring that up.
Okay,
Good fight scene. I just don't think that part kind of brings me out a little bit.
okay.
Small thing. Just looks like it wouldn't kill him. And then
And
the sound effect that they have for it sounds like really light wood too.
ding, 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 ding. Yeah,
Kind
yeah.
of.
I could hear it.
But yeah, okay. So those are good fight scenes. That's the best part of the movie, though. The whole like training, the first half of the movie,
Yeah,
I think
I
is.
agree. That is the better part of the movie is like the part where he's not Batman. That's kind of interesting.
Mhm.
Um, but where like
Okay, kind of.
the training aspect of him becoming Batman is what I like. But the scene that you were referring to, on the docks, I actually really
Mhm.
like that scene as well. And I think,
It's,
and I don't really notice it as shaky cam, but what I do notice, it is deliberately not showing Batman because it's kind of part of that reveal of Batman.
yeah, I see what you're saying, and the rest of it is good. I just there's this one point where he jumps in the middle of like 12 thugs, and then you can't see what's happening.
Hmm.
I like the slow build. I know what you're
Yeah.
saying. That's it's more of what Batman really is, more than just like punching a bunch of guys.
Right. Yeah. Just
Uh,
the shadows, and you're not really sure where he is, kind of aspect,
right, that was handled really well. I
and I
agree there.
and I do
I
like
just I
the.
just wish you could fight. I just wish we could see where his fist is going.
Okay, that's fair. But I do, and then I like where he's like, "Where are you?" And he's like, "Here," and then he gets
Yeah,
him, right? And so just
that's a
all
great
that,
moment.
yeah, yeah, and that was in the trailer, but it
They
was,
knew to use that in the
yeah, that was a good
trailer.
trailer scene. But that was, yeah. So for me, I liked all of that action of just the suspense of like you could only kind of get a blur of him at first or whatnot, and he's just kind of in the shadows and taking out these guys, and so it's not a straight up choreographed fight scene, but it's still like an action scene that was in it.
Right, I know what you mean.
Um, and what
Uh,
I liked about it too was that it was story driven action as well. Especially like in the older Batman, like Batman Forever, Batman Robin, a lot of times there are action scenes for the sake of action scenes. And it
mhm.
was like it felt very integrated in the plot of like him because that's the whole thing of like because that scene is what's after him talking with Gordon's like what would it take to get Falcone, and then he gets Falcone.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. Okay.
That's so the action is kind of my only issue with the Ra's al Ghul aspect.
Okay.
It's Ra's al Ghul. My opinion, we kind of get it in the sword fight in the ice, but
Yeah.
uh,
But what about
the
in the
final
house?
placement,
What about in the house at the end of the movie?
which
Like
what
Bruce's
about it?
house.
There's not much of a fight going on there.
Well, I guess you're right. It's not a fight. I still I guess I could just classify it as an action scene still because it gets intense and he burns down the house and all that. So I guess for me, you're right. It's not actually a fight.
Yeah, okay, so when we're talking about Batman, it's probably good to clarify or, separate between fight choreography and the actual action scene because
Okay.
it's usually the fight choreography that I'm having an
So
issue
that's
with.
okay. That I could see where you're coming from if that's the focus that you're focusing on. Because for me, I
Yeah,
enjoyed the action that Batman Begins
uh,
has, but yeah,
and
the
Batman is.
choreography, especially in the later half of the movie, is lacking. Yep.
I would say mostly kind of even in the scenes that I kind of like
Mhm.
the I would still prefer to have the camera just like on one location so I can see what's going on.
Yeah.
But those parts that I like, that's where it's really minimalized.
Mm. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I see what you're getting at. And
But
yeah,
Batman is all about like creative action, so that's why
yeah.
the rest of that scene on the docks. That's why the rest of that works because it's working to what Batman is all about.
Mhm.
Not necessarily good fight scenes, but creative fun action.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's why the rest of that scene works. I want to know where his fist is connecting, and I want to feel the weight of that punch, and then watch the guy fall over,
Okay.
not him throw a fist, the camera to move around,
Yeah.
and then my mind think that the fist hit the guy, and then he falls over.
All right. So
Anyway,
let's
that's
talk
my
about
Roswell take.
Scarecrow. Let's talk about Scarecrow.
It was mostly well handled. I actually like the way he looks.
Yeah.
I like the costume in a suit, nice getup, and
Yeah.
then the scary mask. I like the mask.
Yeah.
He's mostly well handled. It's just it's just not all the way there.
Mm.
It's like he Christopher Nolan knew what to do with the Scarecrow. It's just the bare minimum of
Yeah.
what to do with the Scarecrow.
Now, when you say
That's
bare minimum, are you referring to the visual effects of the fear gas, or are you just saying with his character in general was bare minimum?
but it's kind of both because he's kind of just a plot device and he doesn't really do anything. And
Hmm.
he's and that's kind of like what he is. He's just there. He just he just says stuff. He's
Well,
not really.
I mean, yeah, in one aspect he's a plot device, but he's an important part of the plot. So I don't think he's a plot device like he's just there to be there. Um, I think it really does connect with the whole he's actually part of, or at least working for, the League of Shadows, which is the reveal. You don't know who he's working for initially. He refers to someone, even when he's talking to Falcone,
Mhm.
um, early on in the
I know you're
movie.
not afraid of me, but you're afraid of who I work for.
Right. So he refers to some other third party that we're not
Mhm.
quite sure who he's referring to yet, and it's not until the end of the movie that we realize that it's actually the League of Shadows still, and that the fear gas that he's using it is the same fear gas that was part of Bruce's trial, just a
Mhm.
higher potency of it. So
I
for
like
me,
that.
all of that was still all kind of connected and still made it not like he's just thrown in there, but it actually was organic to the story.
Well, I guess it's a little bit kind of like my complaint with the difference between Harvey Dent and Two Face.
Okay.
It's excellent Harvey Dent stuff, but the Two Face stuff is kind of rushed.
Yeah.
Um, it's I guess it's good. Uh, I don't know his first
I
name. What's his Jonathan?
think it is, but for the sake of this video, we'll just say his first name is Doctor.
Okay, Doctor Crane. Yeah. Okay, so what was I saying?
So
He
he's a
does
good
Scarecrow
Doctor
like,
Crane, but not a good Scarecrow, or very
and
minimal
Doctor Crane
aspect.
is not nearly as compelling of a character as Harvey Dent.
Yeah.
Um, so I it doesn't really evolve much beyond serving his purpose in the plot.
Okay.
He could have been Scarecrow. He could have been like a crime lord a little bit more. He could
Hmm.
have been more than just like Ra's al Ghul's thug.
Okay.
Um, I mean, a lot of this stuff I'm kind of just coming up with off the top of my head, but I always kind of knew that the Scarecrow really didn't really work in that movie. It's
Okay.
mostly there, but it's just not quite there.
So
He really he doesn't, and not only that, but as you mentioned, the uh the extent to which they used his fear gas was pretty minimal. So even like his main gimmick was pretty sparse.
yeah.
Did you remember Spider-Man Far From Home, that whole Mysterio sequence?
Oh yeah, yeah. That was amazing.
Yeah, we needed something like that. Not just like two little
Yeah.
quick instances.
So
It's realistic. Christopher Nolan knew what he was going for, and
right.
I really like that first confrontation where he lights Batman on fire.
Oh yeah,
It's too quick. And then when he defeats Scarecrow in the end, it's too quick.
So for
What he
me,
does is good. What Christopher Nolan uses is good. I like it visually. It just goes by way too fast.
for me,
And Scarecrow is too good of a villain to be brushed off like that.
um,
In my, I do agree with. I hadn't really thought about how he was more of a plot, integral to the plot, but I don't know. It doesn't really. I can't really. It doesn't really seem like it rises much beyond a plot device. He's just kind of there, and I don't really feel his presence
hmm.
as much as I wanted to.
So for me, I have no issue with how he was handled in the movie. Because I never really thought of Scarecrow as like a crime boss type kind of person. Um,
They're all
if
kind of crime
anything, he
bosses.
was solo. I always thought of him as just kind of a solo, independent bad guy. Or
They all have thugs.
and so I could have
Everyone has
seen.
thugs.
I don't know. I've never really thought of him as someone who had thugs. Um, but and so I didn't mind how he was used and incorporated in the plot because for me, I think that I wouldn't have liked if he was just a separate bad guy. I like how they tied him back into the League of Shadows and it made it like just one coherent narrative plot.
Yeah, that was a good
Um,
choice.
and so I feel like that would have been. I feel like I wouldn't have liked that if they would have made him his like own bad guy in the movie.
Yeah, that I agree. That would have been clunky.
Um, and so for me, I even though the majority of the time he's not wearing the mask, he for me he is still Scarecrow throughout the whole movie. Whereas so for me, I don't have the issue with the Harvey Dent Two Face because those really are two different characters. Harvey Dent is a different character than Two Face, whereas David Crane or Jonathan Crane, whatever his name is, Doctor Crane, and Scarecrow
That's right.
are one and the same to me.
Uh-huh.
There's really no difference in the character. So for me, he was Scarecrow throughout the whole movie that we saw him, whether or not he was wearing the mask. And so I really liked how they utilized him. My complaint with Scarecrow wasn't how he was utilized, but as you were saying, was just the visuals that we saw from the fear gas itself. Um, Now the first time we get it, besides from Scarecrow, as you mentioned, when he sprays Batman and throws him on fire, I thought that was perfect enough for the introduction, the first confrontation between Batman and Scarecrow. That showed him as a threat. We have him crying out for Alfred, right? And
Right.
he's
I do like that scene,
out in the
not that
rain,
part.
and Scarecrow got the upper hand on him, and we saw that it really kind of messed him up, and he wasn't quite prepared for that. And so I don't feel like we needed a lot of visual effect there. I think just seeing how Batman reacted to it was sufficient for that scene. Where I would have liked the better visuals of the scene was at the end of the movie, particularly wherever they are on the other side of the bridge, where all the inmates are and all that, and the gas, which we kind of get. Like we see the horse breathing fire and stuff like that. Which that was a cool scene, and I would have liked like that. You remember the part where like the horse is breathing fire?
Hmm.
Yeah,
That's part of Rachel's hallucination, isn't it?
yeah, I think so.
'Cause she's
Because he's on it,
I
but then
assume.
he immediately. I would have liked like a whole like scene of that those kind of visuals. We only got the one, really, which is with
Well,
the horse.
that's the Scarecrow. I mean, what are you gonna have? It's just if you don't do stuff like that, then it's just a guy in a suit in your movie.
No, no,
So
yeah.
I guess
So that's
that's
what I'm
what I'm
saying.
saying.
What I'm saying is, I would have liked to seen more of those visuals from the effect because that's a whole now like part of the city that's being affected by this fear gas. I would have liked to see the visuals of that fear gas from
Hmm,
the hallucinations more.
okay, for me, that's like part of the Scarecrow character. Otherwise, you just got this guy in a suit and a mask in your movie. That's kind of I. So I guess we're kind of looking at the same thing from a little bit of a different angle.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, um, but for the most part, uh, both villains were mostly well handled,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, just better. I would say I like the way these villains were handled better than the Batman handled their villains.
Hmm.
I think Ra's al Ghul was handled better than Riddler, and I think Penguin was handled better than Scarecrow for me. Um,
I don't know. Yeah,
the
but
thing with I
that's a
see what
hard
you're
thing
saying.
for me
Uh,
to cross because they're handled differently and there's a kind
yeah,
of different
that's
way.
just kind of where my mind goes.
Okay.
It's just kind of like Batman Begins and the Batman kind of. I kind of just relate them together. They also kind of look a whole lot alike.
There are similar aspects to them.
And
Um,
the other two Nolan movies, Gotham doesn't look a whole lot like Batman Begins.
no, which I didn't really like the way Gotham looked in Batman Begins though.
I did and I didn't. It looks a little ugly, but it has personality.
Yeah.
It could have been touched up, but the other two movies don't have a whole lot of personality in
Well,
their
the
Gotham.
big thing that I noticed is different between the other two and this one is the monorail. Their monorail train
Is that
system.
even in, are the is that even in the other
No, it's
movies?
not in the other two, and that's the thing I don't really like in this one. I feel like there's a lot of scenes that take place in. I mean, a large part of the plot even centers around this whole thing, this public
Hmm.
transportation that his. And I don't know. I don't like it. I don't know why. I can't really articulate why. I just don't like it. And
Well, what is it specifically you don't like? I mean, you don't have to
the
articulate why,
train,
but
just the whole. I don't know
explain.
the monorail, like it just how much it focused on this public transportation
I see what you're saying. It's kind
monorail
of
system, like because that's where
yeah.
Rachel almost gets beat up, but then Batman saves her there because she's on
The
this
gas
this
line is
train,
supposed to be exploding along the
and then yeah,
monorail,
yeah, and now it's becomes a big part of the climax is the
the
train.
water
But
line.
I never
Uh-huh.
even, but I didn't like the train even before it became part of the climax. It's just I don't know. There was just something about it that just didn't sit right with me. Like it just didn't really. If anything, that it was something I felt like was specifically there for the plot.
Huh.
And
I
it
never
just
even thought about it really.
never I don't know, it just never meshed with me. And then it became a pivotal part in the plot at the end, and then it's like, oh, well, that's why it's here because they wanted this.
I kind of I th- I think when I first saw the movie, I sort of had like a faint reaction because in no other Gotham is there like this giant train
Yeah,
or anything like that. It's kind of striking.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
but I yeah, and Ra's al Ghul even dies on that train.
yeah. Well,
The
and the
whole
whole
movie is
yeah, I mean, his whole plan centers on that train because that's where he has this microwave thingamajig that
uh-huh.
causes all the gas to come up throughout the city. Um, which I didn't mind that aspect, but it's like
The train
I
doesn't
didn't mind
bug
the
me, but
plot of the gas coming out of the city. It's just the train
that
part
kind
of
of
it.
bugs me a little
And
bit.
you have the narration of the guy. If that train comes over here, the whole city's gonna blow. It's like, aren't we past this? Like I thought we were being serious.
A whole lot
Let
of what I'm just noticing is I think the other two Batman movies rise above it,
yeah,
but that the Batman Begins kind of there's this early 2000s superhero movie quality that's hard to define.
yeah.
But Batman Begins kind of has it.
It has a little bit, and it is trying to grow
It's
away
so
from it.
smartly handled that it becomes better than that
Yeah,
because everything just and it's a good script, it's a good director, everything about the movie works.
right.
So it still has that early 2000s superhero quality
It
that I can't quite.
that scene reminds me of the scene in X-Men 3. What was X-Men 3 called?
Last Stand.
Last Stand, where there's a little like montage-ish scene where all the human soldiers are getting weapons and you just hear this military voice saying and we're not using metal weapons and
Uh-huh.
it's
It's
like
like the most like
it's just such a
generic.
yeah, it's like
That
very
voice
generic,
too
but
is
it's
like,
giving some exposition to explain that the equipment that they're using is going to be effective against Magneto and that's why we're
are you saying
hearing
that
it.
that's kind of like an early 2000s superhero
Yeah, yeah, I think
Batman
so. It's
movie?
just that kind of way to give exposition and it just comes off kind of cheesy comic booky.
I've never liked that guy that you're talking about. It, talking about that train.
Yeah.
If it reaches the station, the whole thing's gonna blow.
Yeah, yeah. It just
Yeah, I
it
don't
just
like it
comes
either.
off like really cheesy and it seems very different than the rest of the tone of the movie. Just
Uh-huh.
the way that kind of scene is lines up. Like that would work in the 89 Batman. But that it just didn't work in this Batman. I don't think.
I think I've never really liked the whole microwave emitter vaporizing the water line to make people breathe in this toxic gas thing.
Yeah.
It seemed a little it was a whole lot like Joker's plan in the first Batman movie with spraying people with gas.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah. But
a little different,
I mean,
but it's
again,
like
that is the
another
whole Scarecrow thing, and so that is part. If you're combining Scarecrow into the plot like that, his whole thing is gas.
yeah, but it could have been I don't know, it's something I don't really know how to put my finger on it. But even back in the day, I thought that this was a little too simple of a plot
Hmm.
for like a Batman movie. I remember thinking I thought this movie was going to be a little bit more sophisticated. The Dark
I
Knight
think
ended up
I see
doing
what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Um, because it was somewhat generic, but I think it, considering where Batman was before in Batman Forever and in Batman Robin, where the plot just didn't even matter.
yeah. It's
Um,
almost no fair to compare it though.
so well, but I think we do have to compare it in the sense that is where that's the foundation that this movie is building off of in
Yeah,
terms of
the
Batman thematic
reputation.
universe, right?
Mhm.
And so even being minimal as it was, it had to kind of they had to kind of rebuild and kind of reprove to the audience that Batman can work in a movie, even after the Schumacher films.
Yeah, it did have a lot of work to do, and it was uphill work.
So
Um,
the
I'm checking
only
out my notes.
okay, as you do that, the only other complaint I have with the movie, the one thing that just never really worked for me, was the chase scene in this movie,
Uh-huh.
uh,
I
where
agree.
where he's like on his Batmobile. Which one? I don't really like this Batmobile. It's too
Uh-huh.
tanky for me. Too
I
bulky.
don't mind it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't
I'm
I
not a
don't
car guy. I don't really care.
I'm not really either, but I don't know. To me, Batman's like it's too noticeable. Like I feel like Batman's whole thing is supposed to be traveling somewhat incognito. Now, obviously, his Batmobile, like the traditional Batmobiles, are
With the
no,
fins and everything.
but they're like more like I don't know, more incognito car, even though they're very clearly the Batmobile. Where
I
this one
guess
is like
Robert
just so
Pattinson was.
bulky, and it's just, and then he's like jumping on rooftops with his car and destroy
Uh-huh.
and so much property damage um
yeah, and he's Batman.
and it's just like, and I just feel like the whole chase scene went on too long. It was, for me, it was just kind of boring. I generally don't like chase scenes anyway.
Mhm.
Um, and for me, that's probably my biggest gripe in this movie is that
Oh,
chase
really?
scene. Everything
Oh,
else I
I don't.
liked more or less.
Uh-huh. I don't even really think of that chase scene. I don't
Yeah.
know. When I pretty much agree with everything that you said, except for it doesn't feel like it goes on for too long. Um, when I watched that part, I don't know. It doesn't. It passes through me like the wind. I don't
Okay.
like chase scenes either, but I don't hate it. I don't hate that chase scene, but I don't particularly like it. Um, it is a weak chase scene as far as chase scenes go. It's
Yeah.
just
I don't know. I didn't
I
like
know you
it.
got to have one in a movie, and it doesn't bug me that much. It's not a good chase scene.
Yeah.
It's not a very well done scene. I'm not very enthralled.
And I don't really even remember why the cops are chasing him at that point.
Um,
Why is there even? Like, and that's part of it too. Is like, is there just chasing here just because there's a chasing? Like, I,
oh,
I'm sure there
uh,
is a plot
Crane
element to
called
it.
the cops.
Uh huh.
I think. Um, and Batman just happened to be there, and he's just not.
And so they chase him.
I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, all of it was very weak. The whole reason for the chase was kind of weak. The choreography of the chase scene was weak,
Mhm.
and I don't like his Batmobile, and I don't like him jumping on rooftops with his with his tank of a Batmobile.
Yeah, I can't really disagree with any. I don't mind his Batmobile. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really hate it.
Hmm.
I I don't care about any of the Batmobiles. Really, Michael Keaton had the best one. I don't care.
Oh yeah, yeah.
No,
I
either
agree.
Michael Keaton because it's so iconic, or Robert Pattinson because it's so practical.
I like and I love the Robert Pattinson chasing where he's chasing Penguin.
Yeah, yeah,
For me, that
that is
really
a good choice.
worked.
Uh-huh. I still
Um,
like the one in Dark Knight more.
I
I
do
think.
like the one in Dark Knight a lot, and part of that is I don't even consider it a chasing. For me, it doesn't really feel like a chase scene. It's for me that's just an action scene that happens to be
With
on a
cars.
motorcycle and Joker shooting bazooka stuff, out of his truck and all of that. And it's all
Yeah,
part of the sequence of Harvey. For me, that's all still very story driven. If there's still a lot of script elements to it than just a straight up chase.
that's the Dark Knight is just so good.
It is.
It's
It
it's
is. It is really
almost
good.
it's just it's so perfect.
Okay.
It's
Well, do
almost
you have anything else on Batman Begins?
uh I have one thing,
Okay.
but I want to see if there's other things that I am missing.
Okay.
Um I like I don't know why I started the sentence I like, but um I feel like it's not who you are underneath, but what you do that defines you. That's
Okay.
the
Yeah.
message of the movie. I feel like that's a really elaborate way of saying actions speak louder than words.
Yeah. It is. Yeah.
So that's kind of that's I guess to make that statement, I that's the message I pull from Batman Begins. It's just a
Yeah.
really elaborate
For
of
me,
that.
there's kind of like three key messages. So that'd be one of them. Um,
What are the others?
the other two is all it takes for bad things to happen or something like that is for good people to do nothing.
Hmm.
Um, so the idea of just
Rachel
apathy.
says that earlier.
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of actual Rachel's lines. I actually like Rachel in this movie. I don't like her in the next movie, but I like her in this
Mm.
movie, and I like
That was
that.
one of the
I
things.
like this
That'll
actress
be our
better too.
transition.
Okay. Um. So yeah, so that's one of them, and oh no, and then the other one's not Rachel related. The other one is what do we do when we fall? We get back up,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's his general lesson that he learned in this movie. I would say that was like what the theme of this whole movie I would say is kind of about is he fell, right? His parents died. He had this tragedy, and he learned how to get himself back up and becoming
Hmm.
Batman and doing something with that meaningful. Um,
What did I had something written for that. Batman Begins. It's about I wrote the sentence answering the call and learning what it takes to be Batman.
okay,
Batman Begins. It's
yeah,
yeah, okay, so each movie I have begins, it's Batman learning to answer the call and learning what it takes to be Batman. And then in Dark Knight it's learning what like the true extent of Batman and what the true cost of
yeah.
what
I would say
Batman.
cost is definitely an aspect of what he learns in Dark Knight.
I really like Bruce Wayne. This is Batman Begins is probably the very best Bruce Wayne movie, I would
Yes,
say.
I would say
Um,
so.
when my complaint, I had that complaint about him being charming with women, kind of that aspect being a little underwritten. That's a really big nitpick. But I don't know if this is much of a nitpick or if it's a little bit bigger. When Bruce Wayne returns to Gotham, it's it needs to be a much bigger deal because everyone thinks he's dead and he's so
Hmm.
famous. And then it's just it's he shows up in Wayne Enterprises. He
Yeah.
surprises the CEO guy, and then the very next scene, it's Rachel's boss saying, "Hey, have you heard? It's all over the news. Bruce Wayne is back." And then there's no there needs to be like that scene in Spider-Man when he first that montage when he's putting on the mask and he's fighting people for the first time. There
Okay.
needs to be a Bruce Wayne version of that. It doesn't have to be like a campy montage or anything, but we needed a little bit more hubbub about it's I don't know. I thinking about it, I guess it's not that big of a deal because the story doesn't suffer that much, but it's not that
Yeah, I
realistic.
see what you're saying for Bruce. But before we go on, I just want to say hi to one of our followers. Someone made a comment here. So Miss Evelyn, I know her as Miss Penguin. She's a
Mhm.
fellow gaming streamer, and so she just came in and she made a comment saying she hardly knows anything about Batman movies, but wanted to come and say hi and be supportive of an awesome friend. So Definitely appreciate you popping in, Penguin. And
Hello, Penguin.
yeah, if you stick around, maybe you learn some things about Batman. So we're just talking about the Christopher Nolan Batman movies. That's Batman Begins, Dark Knight, and Dark Knight Rises. Came out in 2006. I forget when Dark Knight came
None of
out.
them have the Penguin.
And or no, 2005. 2005 is when Batman Begins came out, and the Dark Knight Rises, the third one, came out in 2012. I kind of forget when Dark Knight came out. Is that 2008?
2008.
Okay.
Same year as Iron Man.
Oh, okay. So, I don't know if you have anything else on Batman Begins, but I think we're at a good point to transition to Dark Knight, unless you had something else that you wanted to talk about on Batman Begins.
No, I think that was it. I think just mentioning that part about Bruce Wayne returning.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, and I could agree to that. Like, and part of it, maybe part of it was he was trying to come back somewhat incognito. Like Bruce
yeah.
intentionally was trying to come back in not a way to put a lot of attention on himself, because
I think he's
initially,
lying about it.
because actually, yeah, if as I'm recalling the movie now, initially when Bruce first comes back, he has no intention on being Bruce Wayne. He just wants to be Batman.
Hmm.
And it's not until he has a conversation with Alfred that Alfred encourages him to, well, you need to have some kind of social life. And so that's probably would explain why there wasn't a lot of publicity and whatnot as he first returns to Gotham, because he probably did that intentionally as a character.
Hmm.
Um, but eventually he does come out as Bruce Wayne and being more public, and that's probably where we should have had a scene like what you're referring to.
Just something to show
Yeah, that was
a
kind of a
little bit
big
more
deal.
realistic. Just because he's such a big deal,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everyone in Gotham knows who Bruce Wayne is. I'm guessing they didn't do that though because the audience would probably put together, oh, this Bruce Wayne guy showed up at the same time this Batman guy shows up. Um,
Yeah,
maybe that was intentional.
maybe.
Okay,
So let's
I
talk
think
about Dark Knight.
I think I technically, in general, kind of like Maggie Gyllenhaal's portrayal of the character more,
Okay.
but it's really slight. I don't really. It's not much of a big deal.
Yeah.
The thing is, I just like continuity. I would have preferred. I guess I technically prefer Maggie Gyllenhaal, but they already had Katie Holmes, so they should have just stuck with her.
Yeah,
They were gonna kill her
and
off
I
anyway. So
think it was Katie Holmes who rejected the role to be in the sequel.
I never knew what happened.
I want to say that's what it was. I want to say it had something to do with Tom Cruise,
I
because she was
assumed
married,
that
and
was my
that might be
assumption.
an assumption on my part as well. Um, I just don't feel like, I don't know. I didn't really like what's her name?
Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Yeah, Maggie Gyllenhaal. There's just something about her that I don't know. She just kind of bugs me, and I don't think she and Bruce really had chemistry. Like I didn't really feel like any kind of real relationship there. Where I did feel that with Katie Holmes and Christian Bale in the first one.
Would you say it's the script, the differences between the scripts, or the difference
Maybe, but
between the
I
actors?
just think it's, I don't know. Just I think it was just kind of the way she came off, and part of it could have been part of her dialogue, because she was in a in that script, right, in the second movie, she is in a relationship with Harvey Dent, and so
Mhm,
part of that is she really isn't supposed to be connecting with Bruce, and really it's Bruce that's kind
mhm,
of built it more up, and that's kind of the point of this movie, where Bruce has kind of built up this relationship more than what she is in at that point. She's kind of already gotten over it, and has moved on, and Bruce really hasn't. And he kind of brings this up like twice to her. It's like, hey, you remember when you said if you, if I could ever put away the Batman, we could be together, kind of thing. He brings that up twice in this movie, and both times she like hesitantly answers in the affirmative. Um, and then she writes a letter saying ultimately, like, no, I'm choosing Harvey. Um, so that could be part of it. Maybe it's because of some story elements why she doesn't seem to be as much. But even with with him to her, I didn't really feel it. And like intellectually, it's there, in the dialogue, it's there,
mhm.
but I didn't. I don't know. I don't know. I
I,
think there was
I
just something
think we
off with
might.
their chemistry.
I think as the audience, we're also kind of feeling the weird separation between these two actors, Katie Holmes and
And
Maggie
that could
Gyllenhaal.
be part of it. That could be part of it. But I just liked Kitty Holmes better. And maybe it's because she was first. Maybe that's who we were introduced to first. But I don't know. I felt like she really was like the childhood friend, even
Oh, I
as
could see
Kitty
that.
Holmes. Whereas like with Maggie Gyllenhaal, I just did not get that feel.
I for me, I guess there's just something a little bit more mature about Maggie Gyllenhaal. She kind of fit the Christopher Nolan universe for me a little bit more,
Yeah, she did seem like because I mean Katie Holmes unfortunately has that just very young look even if she's a little older, right? She'll always kind of have this very almost teen-ish look about her, and that will
which is
always kind of work
a good
against
thing
her
for her.
in terms of trying to be mature in a mature role. Um, but I don't know. But yeah, I don't. For me, that's the my weakest part of the Dark Knight is Maggie Gyllenhaal.
It's always strange when you switch up actors like that.
Yeah.
It's so strange that they did that in one of the best movies, one of the best superhero movies ever. That
Well,
we have that
I'm
situation
sure it's
going on.
because Katie Holmes refused to come back for whatever
Yeah,
reason. I
that's a
don't know
shame.
why, but I'm nearly certain the reason why she was recasted was because Katie Holmes, for whatever reason,
The
denied
movie
coming
was
back.
just going to be too high profile, and either Tom or her just didn't want that kind of that level of publicity
Yeah,
on top of what they're already going through.
yeah, don't
Maybe.
really know, but yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, it's all speculation.
for me, that's the weakest thing in the movie is just
Well,
that interaction. Um,
I don't have any notes on The Dark Knight other than the whole movie is taking the idea of the concept of Batman. He's in the first one, he's answering the call and becoming
yeah,
Batman because this is what he learns this is what he needs to be, and this is the movie all about the costs of what it means to be Batman. So I guess I already mentioned that, but
yeah.
it goes as far as killing off Rachel.
I see two or three themes here in Dark Knight. Um, one of them, like you mentioned, is like the cost of being Batman, which is partly connected to an evolution of what he learns in Batman Begins. Because part of the theme in Batman Begins is the reason why he takes on Batman is so that he could be more than just a man, but a symbol. And then that kind of
Hmm.
really comes to a climax in Dark Knight at the end of Dark Knight, to where we could blame all this stuff on Batman because
Oh
he could
yeah,
take it because he's
you're
a
right.
symbol. He's not a person per se,
Hmm.
right? And so
Whatever Gotham needs him to be.
right, and so that's so it's kind of an evolution of what was initiated in Batman Begins. Kind of comes to a climax here in the Dark Knight of that plot element aspect, that thematic element rather. Um, and I had another one. Oh, and just the
Yeah.
idea of like order and chaos is a big theme in this movie, right? I mean, that's what Joker is all about in this one,
Hmm.
is just chaos for the purpose of chaos and going against the planners and the schemers and whatnot, just to show them how ridiculous it is to be planning and scheming in a chaotic world. And his whole mindset, his whole philosophy is there is no such thing as structure. It is all chaos, and to do any kind of planning is and all of that is futile. And I'm going to show you why. And that's his whole point, which I really liked. I really liked like it was a little bit more than just a crazy Joker. He was a somewhat a philosophical Joker.
I feel like Nolan kind of he basically made it so that he couldn't do the Riddler because Joker was basically what the Riddler was doing. Just kind of like on a more jokey and psychotic level, I guess.
Hmm.
Less to do with actual riddles, but I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I've if you think this is kind of what I've always thought, but the Joker was kind of like played as the Riddler, the way he like sets up these things, and then the good guys have to like figure it out and
Hmm.
then deal with the problem. It's kind of like a different take on the Riddler.
Kind of.
That's just
I think he still
what
could
I
have done
read.
Riddler. I wish he would have done Riddler in the third one still, and kind of played it more as an intellectual challenge. Where this one is a philosophical challenge, right? The Dark Knight
Mm-hmm.
is a difference in philosophy. Joker being chaos and against kind of anarchy kind of aspect, chaos and so forth. Batman being about establishment, being about order, being about rules and law. And so it's philosophical. It's two different philosophies coming to a head. Are you still there?
You froze.
Okay, you froze too, so I'm not sure.
You still there? Can
Okay,
you see
yep,
me?
yep. Okay,
You're frozen.
Am I still frozen? Okay,
You're
can you?
choppy. The audio is just fine.
Okay,
Oh, okay, you're back.
you can hear me. Okay, so anyway, um, there was so much. All right, so reading a comment here, there was so much hype around the Joker with this movie. It really grew the platform for villain-based DC movies, in my opinion. Yeah. So, well, let's talk about Joker in this movie, and then I'll kind
That's a
of get
good point.
into um, Heath Ledger as Joker. Who would have ever thought that that would have worked?
I was disappointed at first. I
Um,
remember waiting. Okay, who's
oh,
gonna play the
appreciate it,
Joker?
Penguin.
Who's gonna play the Joker?
Yeah. And so you find out it's Heath Ledger, like the pretty boy from A Knight's Tale. That's what I think of from
Yeah.
Heath Ledger. He was the pretty boy
Okay.
in The Patriot, right? He was the
Yeah.
right, and so he always kind of played that kind of role.
I think he was fresh off of his gay cowboy role too.
Yeah, Brokeback Mountain, right? Again, a
Yeah.
pretty boy aspect, a character type of a character,
Mhm.
and so it's like that's who's gonna
He's
be
not even a
Joker.
comedian.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's just like never would have thought him to be. And I remember being disappointed. I'm like, really, this guy? And but yeah, but when you watch it, his performance is just so good. Um,
Hmm.
Penguin says, "I love A Knight's Tale, though." Yeah, it's been I barely even remember the movie, to be honest. It's been the last time I saw that movie was in high school, and I only saw it once, I think. Um,
It just makes me
but
think
that
of
just
Queen.
definitely is not like who you would think of to play the Joker. And
Yeah. Alan Tudyk before Heath Ledger, and he's in A Knight's Tale.
yeah, I mean, yeah, and so,
Someone
but when you
Heath
watch
Ledger
it,
isn't even a comedian. He's just like this actor.
yeah, and when you watch it, and I never even took him as a serious actor either. It's just kind of always these kind of like teen kind of movie. Well, I mean, I guess Patriot isn't really a teen movie, but he still kind of played that teenage
Yeah,
aspect
what's
of the
that movie
movie.
called? 10 Things I Hate About You.
Yeah, it's like okay, that's yeah, I mean, that is one of those kind of teen movies. But anyways,
Mhm.
so but when you watch the movie, I can't even tell that it's him. He completely just
Yeah, I know.
transforms himself into this Joker. Um, and for me, I still think of it as very much as a Joker character. I never, until you kind of brought it up just now, I never really thought of him as any kind of Riddler aspect to him. Now, when you say it, I can see what you're talking about because you got the whole where he has two people killed and one of them is Dent and one of them is Harvey, and that's how you put together that his next target is Harvey Dent. So he's kind of
Things
leaving
like
those
that.
Riddler type clues. So now that you
Mhm.
say that, I could see that. I never thought about that before. And then the very end, where he has the two boats go off, right, and they have the
Yeah,
switches to each
I was
other's,
thinking more of that.
and
Yeah.
yeah, that's not really a Joker kind of thing, but I really like that. So for me, but for me, it still
But it's not
worked.
outside of what the Joker would do. The Joker still would do things like that.
Yeah,
It's just a
and
little
it's
more ish on the Riddler side.
and it worked for his point because his whole point was at our core, we're all selfish, chaotic,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna prove it to you. And so for me, yeah, I loved his Joker, and it's been a while since I've seen '89, and Jack Nicholson definitely has a lot of nostalgia aspects of him, and he's definitely more of a traditional Joker, or at least what I think of as a traditional
Yeah,
Joker.
Jack Nicholson is
Um,
more the clown prince of crime, whereas Heath Ledger is like
this
fucking
chaotic,
thespian.
crazy, yeah. I mean, both of them kind of play
Yeah,
crazy, but
psychotic.
I don't know. I think I enjoy Heath Ledger's Joker more though. Just from an entertain, like I like his magic trick. Um,
Uh-huh.
like even that whole scene that he kind of comes in to see the mobsters at first, right? And he even kind like he has like a Joker laugh, but it's like not really. He's like ha ha
Uh-huh.
ho ho ha ha. He's like not really
Uh-huh.
like even trying to laugh. He's just saying the sounds of laughter. Um, and
Yeah,
then
it's just everything he chooses is just so good.
and then he's like, by the way, this purple suit wasn't cheap. You should know you bought it, right? Because he stole their money. And I mean, the beginning of the movie is all Joker focused, right? The bank robbery scene,
Hmm.
and that's our introduction to Joker. And I love that scene. That's just how how that all plays out, and how the henchmen kill each other off is part of the plan.
Hmm.
Um, I really enjoyed. And what I really like about it is that scene isn't just Joker being Joker. It's not just Joker robbing a bank because he's just a bad guy and that's what he does. But again, that actually plays a central element to the actual plot. He's stealing the
Yeah, it kicks
mobster's
everything
money.
off.
He's stealing the mobster's money. It's how he gets into the mob aspect of the movie, right? And it's
Right.
actually a big portion of what drives the plot of this movie. It's what initiates a lot of the plot in this movie, anyway. And
I like
really,
how both
oh, go ahead.
I like how both 89 and this movie are basically about the Joker's rise through the gang, through the established mafia,
Hmm.
and how they kind of like and they're kind of like they run things kind of differently ish.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Because
then
like the Jack Nicholson, he
this one's
actually
a lot more
was in the
gritty and
mob.
detailed and realistic.
Um, Whereas here, he kind of works with the mob and in a sense for the mob, but he's really not on the mob side either.
Which one?
Because this Heath Ledger's Joker,
Okay.
because
So
he's
they're
kind of
kind of
killing off the mob as he goes as well.
mhm. Well, just
Um,
the ones who won't play along with them.
yeah, but even afterwards, he doesn't really connect with him. Even the ones who are kind of in favor of him, who decide to work with him, he's really not part of them. He's actually, if anything, he's kind of making his own thing.
Yeah, for the most
Um,
basically. I definitely like. I mean, obviously, I love Heath Ledger as the Joker.
mhm.
I would technically like Jack Nicholson's Joker just a little bit more.
Okay.
It's just a preference thing, though.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, they're obviously doing great. They're both obviously doing great performances. Um, Jack Nicholson's Joker comes off a little bit more natural, and Heath Ledger's Joker comes off a lot more. Well, I don't want to say unnatural. What's like really fucking crafted? It's like perfected.
hmm.
Someone pointed out that he kind of. I don't know if you know who the musician Tom Waits is, but he kind of sounds and acts a little bit like Tom Waits. Um, so I wonder if that was an inspiration. It's kind of like got like that the same kind of nasally but at the same time smoky voice going on.
I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, there are definitely two very different types of Jokers, like the way they play it.
In Batman 89, someone calls the Joker crazy and his reaction is, haven't you ever heard the healing power of laughter? And in Heath Ledger's Joker, someone calls him crazy and he gets all like angry about it.
Yeah, he's like, yeah,
They're
I'm
kind
not.
of totally different.
Yeah, they're very
Huh?
different kind of Jokers.
Jack Nicholson's Joker is like batshit, totally gone, lost, crazy, kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Heath
Um,
Ledger's Joker is a little bit more has more of a purpose, I
eh,
guess.
um, yeah. So anyway, so really like the Joker in this movie. I like a lot of what he does, and was just completely surprised by Heath Ledger's performance.
I like the scars.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. I like
I
that.
came up with them before I saw the movie. By the way,
What?
I came up with that as a like a character element
Oh, the
before I ever
scars.
saw the Dark Knight.
So
Yeah,
I like
I just
that
want to.
every time he tells the story of the scars, it's a completely different story.
Yeah, I know.
And that for me, I like for two reasons. One, it kind of plays again homage to the idea that no one knows the Joker's true backstory. Yeah, you're kind of breaking up on me too. I don't know if it's my end or your end. But I see you better now.
And it's probably my end. Oh, there we go.
Okay. But and for me, I like it for two reasons. One, it plays homage to the idea that there's a lot of different backstories to the Joker. Like even in comic book lore, there are a
Mhm.
lot of different varieties of stories of Joker's origins, and no one really knows, even canonically, no one really knows the actual origin of Joker, and that's part of the point because canonically there are multiple different origin stories to the Joker. Um, and so for me, I think part of that it plays his different story to his scars kind of plays to that. But two is it's just kind of part of his craziness that he's playing, and you just don't really even know what's true and what's not true with him. Did you
Still
get
there?
that? Did you hear what I
Yeah,
just said?
yeah. You don't really get to know what's true, what's not true. Is the last thing
Yeah,
you said?
yeah, and it
Did you
just
say
kind of
that there's
plays to his craziness.
okay?
Um,
Yeah, I like that. I also kind of like how he just fell into a thing of acid. I kind of like that backstory.
oh well, yeah, in the
But
'89 one, yeah.
I'm not saying I prefer it though.
Um,
But I do like it. I do like his backstory in Batman '89.
okay. So, oh, and then
I
so
like that we get one, but
and then
I know what you
continuing with the scars, I really like. So he tells these different stories, right? He's like, "Do you know how I got these scars?" And that's how he opens it up. And he tells one story to one guy. He tells a different story to Rachel, and then
but
he,
something happened because he has those scars.
oh yeah, yeah. I think he just did it to himself, but we don't really know. And then, but then he says it to Batman. It's like, "Do you know how I got these scars?" And then, but
Hmm.
Batman doesn't give him a chance. Like, "No, but I know how you got these." And I really like that. And then he like shoots the little dart things at him.
Hmm.
So I like how it like played up into the conflicts between Batman and Joker.
Yeah, I do like that. I like how it was set up earlier. Um, One part of that has always bugged me just a little bit though. When in that final fight scene with
Mhm.
Joker and Batman,
Mhm.
it's like you it's like you see Batman and he's struggling with that bar, and
Yeah.
then it cuts away, and then it cuts to him just before he's about to shoot the thing, and suddenly his arm is up where it didn't used to be there. It's just like suddenly there.
Huh.
It's just kind of I don't know. Watch that scene again, and notice the way it just kind of like it cuts to him suddenly with his arm free. I,
Okay.
it seems a little convenient, but it's a little comical. But I
Okay.
still I still like what you're talking about.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I never noticed that. I never noticed that if his arm was trapped in one scene and then it's suddenly free in the other.
Hmm.
I don't know. Yeah. I never noticed that.
But I appreciate what you're talking about because it's kind of like bringing with the blades on his arm that was set up earlier in the movie,
Right.
and then the thing he's talking about with his mouth that was set up
Yeah.
multiple times in the movie, and so that's kind of like two things converging,
Right.
two setups
Oh.
converging all at the same time. I just now put that together, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Okay.
How did you like the Joker tease at the end of Batman Begins?
No. Yeah. I thought it worked fine. I thought it worked fine,
Yeah.
and it introduces Joker.
Hmm.
To a degree, all it is his calling card, his Joker card, which opens up to this movie, and that's how this movie begins, right? That's how that movie ends. Is we have this, it's his card, and it's a Joker card, and then this movie, The Dark Knight, begins with the Joker. So for me, it actually is very good connection, a segue from one movie to the next,
Yeah, the
and
movies are. I really like how the two movies are connected like that.
yeah,
I think
and
it's really really
well,
smoothly
and
done.
Dark Knight to Dark Knight
Or really
Rises does a
executed.
very similar thing. Dark Knight Rises ends with Gordon giving a speech, and and it's about Harvey Dent, and Harvey Dent's death, and then Dark Knight Rises opens with a speech from the mayor and Gordon about Harvey Dent's death and them celebrating Harvey Dent Day. Um, and so that directly now connects Dark Knight into Dark Knight Rises. So both movies do that. So the whole trilogy actually kind of chains
Huh.
itself together.
I didn't remember that. You're making me realize that I should probably have watched Rises as well.
um,
I am pretty familiar with that movie.
okay. Anyway, but sticking with Dark Knight. All right, so yeah, really like the Joker. Really like just his whole portrayal. Every scene he's in, I like. I like. Uh,
Yeah, it's just the Joker
oh,
in general is like the best, basically the best comic book supervillain, and it's just such a great portrayal. It's kind of hard to screw it up. It's like screen candy. It's just the best. It's the Joker is like a lightsaber. It's just whenever it's on screen, you're having a good time. It's kind of hard to fuck it up.
hey, by the way, I hadn't mentioned you before, but I do generally am family friendly. So if we could not do
Oh,
language. Um,
okay. I'll do
yeah,
my best.
yeah. So I have a
I
lot
will
of
do my best.
I have family viewers, family friendly viewers. Anyways, but well,
Should have told me that ahead of time.
yeah, I know. I realize I didn't. So
Well, I'll
we're
try.
moving on. Um,
Uh,
anything else with Joker? Or is there something else in Dark Knight you wanted to move on to?
how do you feel about how Scarecrow wasn't captured at the end of Batman Begins, and then he's kind of basically the third villain in Dark Knight at the
Yeah,
beginning.
he's kind of I guess I didn't really realize that he wasn't captured in Dark Knight in Batman Begins until I saw
Hmm.
Dark Knight, and then I was like, oh yeah, what happened to Scarecrow? Right? Because he just all that happens is he gets like tased or something. I think he gets
Yeah, he runs
tased,
away.
and he's on that horse, and yeah, and the horse just runs away, and he's just on it, and that's the last we see of him in Batman Begins. And so yeah, so it was just like okay, it was, yeah, a little for me it was just kind of more of a cameo. It was kind of a good way to introduce Batman because that's when Batman is first introduced into the movie, and at first you have those
Hmm.
fake Batmans, which I thought that was kind of a cool idea. Like Batman kind of inspired other vigilantes, but aren't that good at it.
Hmm.
And I like how Scarecrow like recognizes like, oh, that's not him, and then
Yeah.
he like crushes in with his tank Batmobile car that I don't like, and but then Scarecrow's like, that's more like it, um, and recognizes like the real Batman versus the imposter Batmans. And then I like
Yeah,
Batman's
that's
interact. Yeah, so I like that, and then it gives you that little chase, and then he gets caught, and that's kind of a good, and that happens in the beginning of the movie. So again, it serves kind of as a link of that transition from the first one into the second one. Kind of has a good, yeah, just like that good
I
transition.
really like it as I really like it as one of the opening scenes. I really appreciate how Begins and Dark Knight are connected.
Yeah, and
I just like the way that's done.
and
It's sort
it's
of like
enjoyable. Like
Monsters.
the that action scene there is fun to watch.
Hmm. It's
Uh,
still a little bit of we're still kind of not getting a whole lot of what we want with the Scarecrow. He just smashes the car, and
yeah, he
next
wasn't
scene he pulls
really
off the mask.
he wasn't really Scarecrow in the
He's
movie.
just technically there.
Yeah, he's there. We know it is the Scarecrow that's in the movie. Um,
Oh.
the only thing that even resembles anything of the fear gas is the other, mobster guys are mad that their kind of clientele are
Hmm.
kind of suffering from these fear, hallucinogens from their
Yeah.
drugs
They think they're
essentially.
buying drugs, but they're buying weapons.
Right, they're buying these like drugs that are actually this fear-inducing hallucinogens. And he's like, no one wants to buy this. Like, and then he's like, well, don't buy my stuff then. Um, so it's like a drug deal, but it's like not really a good drug that anyone would actually want. It's like the wrong kind of hallucinogen.
Everything everything about that beginning is really good. I like. I just wish there could be still again a little bit more of a scuffle between Batman and Scarecrow.
Hmm.
And we never get him with a scythe. He never has a scythe.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not a big
That's
deal,
not
but
really
it
a
would have been
Nolan.
cool to
I,
see.
I wouldn't I wouldn't expect I wouldn't have expected that in a Nolan Scarecrow.
Yeah, but I also wouldn't have expected him to be riding a
You froze up
horse.
on me.
Not that that's supernatural or anything, but it's more like a gimmicky thing.
Kind
I'd rather
of,
have a scythe
but
than a horse.
I think that was established because you see cops on horses riding into that area, which that is a thing. Horseback
I don't remember
cops.
that part.
So that's how the horse even got there.
Okay,
Was that it was a cop's horse?
so
But
that was
anyway,
set up. I didn't. Okay,
if I remember right, as they're crossing before they close the bridge, because anyway, that's in Begins, right? When they close
you're
the bridge.
probably right. I just watched the movie, and you're probably right.
um, but anyway, um, Harvey Dent. I really like Harvey Dent in this movie.
Oh yeah,
They really
this is kind
played
of
him.
like the first one was kind of like the Bruce Wayne movie. This is kind of like the Harvey Dent movie in a little way.
Yeah,
I mean, he's more of a side character, but a lot of the story focuses on him.
it does. Yeah, and I really like he's the White Knight versus the Dark Knight, right? So I like that parallel.
And it's like there are a lot of scenes with just him too, like not even with Bruce Wayne, not even Batman, not even Bruce Wayne. It's just him
Yeah,
interacting with
yeah.
these other characters like Gordon.
And I
And Logan.
love I love his coin. I love that he makes his own luck and it's revealed that it's a double-sided coin all along. And you know, watching the movie knowing that it's a double-sided coin and seeing like how he uses it, I really enjoyed after already knowing, when you go back and watch it as a second viewer and thereafter knowing that it's a double-headed coin and the things that he says pertaining to that coin, like, hey,
Hmm.
heads, I'll take the case, right? Or
Hmm.
heads, you live, tails,
Is
you
leave a man's
die.
life up to chance?
He's
Not
like,
exactly.
yeah, not exactly right. And so there are a couple times where he uses it and it really plays up, which really is a cool way to connect it to the comic book Two Face and still in a very realistic way. Now, Two Face as a character is probably the one that lends itself the most to really be in a more realistic Batman because there's really nothing supernatural about Two Face. And if anything, it's more
Yeah,
psychological.
except I would say, I mean, it's scars. Um, I have a small complaint about the Two Face get up.
Oh, when he
He
actually
would be in
becomes
a
Two
lot of
Face?
pain.
Yeah.
Yeah, he would be in a lot of pain, and his speech would be very, very, very heavily affected.
Yeah, I do the the amount of face that was off
Yeah,
wasn't
the amount of
practical.
flaking.
That definitely went beyond the norm, like the reality aspect, because that wouldn't work.
Uh-huh.
That's not
It
how
was a
that.
cinematic choice. Nolan was
Yeah,
doing it on purpose to get. It was trying to get us to, he was trying to say that like everyone kind of has two faces. Are you still there?
yeah, but yeah, I think we're
You
having
gotta
a
jump.
slightly bad connection, but I'm hearing you just fine.
Okay, so like the philosophy is like Nolan was trying to say that there's like two sides to everyone, and it's like a cinematic decision to like show.
Yeah.
It gets the audience thinking, oh, that's what we look like on the inside, and then connecting that to how we truly act on the inside versus
Hmm.
how we are. It's a thing.
Okay.
So that's why Nolan decided to make it so graphic, but
Yeah.
it's kind of unrealistically graphic. He could have just gone with some burn marks,
Yeah. Yeah. Something.
and it's a little distracting. His like he would he'd be saying weird.
Yeah.
He'd be
It doesn't. Yeah.
shit.
It's yeah.
He'd be spitting stuff out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
I agree. I like how he becomes Two Face in the movie, and like he
Oh
even
yeah.
falls in his chair, and like you even see the oil like coming across that half of his face, and you know where this is going,
Hmm.
right? Even as an audience, like oh man, like you already feel it before it even happens, and
Uh-huh.
that's really good. That's just good movie making.
Uh-huh.
Um, I love that. Oh, there's I love that you do kind of see a slightly different side of Harvey before he does become Two Face, which is
When he's interrogating that guy.
when he's interrogating the guy, like you can see like his demeanor changes when he is by himself, when no one else was watching. Like
Hmm.
you can kind of see like there's a little bit of craziness there. I wish they would have played off a little bit more of the split personality aspect. Hey, Kylo, what's going on? I got Kylo Greenway in the chat here. Um, but that's one thing I do wish that they would have. I mean, they didn't address it at all. I don't think he was suffering any kind of schizophrenia or split personality or any of that kind of disorder I don't think Harvey Dent had that at all in this movie. Um, but
Yeah,
we
not
do
at all.
see there was a slightly different side of Harvey than we saw, which is in the ambulance that you're talking about, right? When he takes the that crazy guy, I forget his name, um, and he drives
Schiff.
away, and he has a kind of a different demeanor where he kind of went a little crazy, not
Hmm.
schizophrenic crazy, but he kind of like you see this like kind of like mad aspect of him that he had that's not part of his normal public side of himself.
Right.
And then
It's not
even
really
when
set up. I'm not sure if it needs to be.
say again,
The fact that he has like this angry side to him
yeah,
isn't exactly set up before that part, but I'm
right.
not sure if it really needs to be.
Well, I like that it was. I like that it was there because again, it kind of connects. It kind of a connects that there is a different side of Harvey than just the White Knight side of Harvey. Um,
Mhm.
and and then you see that when Batman walks away after that scene, after Batman says, "Would you leave a man's life to chance?" and he says, "Not exactly." And then Batman walks away. I forget exactly what that conversation was about, other than like, what do you
I'm gonna
expect to
turn
get?
myself in tomorrow.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's when he makes that decision, um, that he will turn himself in, and then you see Harvey like yelling, like almost like a crazy man, like you can't do that, and right, he's like really
Mhm.
like mad, and that's like you didn't really see that side of Harvey. And you could see he's like, oh, that's part of him though. So I did like that you saw snippets of him, not just the perfect White Knight before he became Two Face.
Yeah, I agree. One of the problems is with this move, with the way that Dark Knight did Harvey Dent. It's we're kind of getting a what's his name, J.K. Simmons, J. Jonah Jameson situation where, well, how are you going to do Harvey Dent this good in the future?
Well, I
It's
think
it's we have him.
the way you could do it, the where it is still different, um, is a lot like what the cartoon did, the animated
Uh,
series. It was a two-part episode,
one of the best
and
episodes.
it was one of the best, and it really but that episode really does play up the tragedy of Harvey Dent and becoming Two Face,
It,
and
yeah, he's in the therapy sessions.
his struggle with this split personality, and he's struggling with that even before he comes Two Face, and then Two Face really then just becomes after he gets the scarring, it really becomes
Mhm.
the embodiment of the struggle that he's been really suffering all along, that he's kind of kept hidden, as a public figure. And I think if they did that in movie wise, that could really work, where you still really rely heavy on the Harvey Dent aspect before he actually becomes Two Face, but you put in that element of the split personality struggle in there, and that's how you can make another Two Face cinematic movie. Because neither, like the other Two Face that we have, is not really even Two Face, is the Tommy Lee Jones Two Face, where
Yeah,
he looks like Two Face, but does not act or anything Two Face.
we do technically get an origin story snuck
You
in the
do,
middle of the movie.
yeah, and you get the little acid spray that you see on the news. You watch it on a TV in the movie,
Right.
a
Yeah.
quick little scene. So true, you do. But Tommy Lee Jones did not play Two Face. He played someone who looked like Two Face, but did not act or anything like that. Um,
Yeah.
this Harvey Dent was amazing, but I don't think it was to the point where I don't think it was the point where we can't have a different kind of Two Face, and that's how I would do it. I would do it the way the
It's
cartoon did
just
it.
gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard to up the ante from this Harvey Dent.
Yeah,
I guess
yeah,
one aspect is, like you said, they could play up the whole split personality, the whole psychosis that he
right.
has. I don't. They basically barely touched on it in the Nolan movie, but it's there. I guess what they could do in if like the Batman series wanted to do Two
Hmm.
Face, they could make Bruce Wayne and Harvey Dent more friends
Yeah.
rather than
Now that's the other thing the cartoon did really well
contemporaries.
at was we saw the friendship of Harvey Dent and Bruce Wayne
Yeah, for
in
a
the
few
cartoon
episodes,
series. Yeah, for a lot of the
or
episodes,
even yeah.
before he ever became Two Face. As a kid, I had no idea that Harvey Dent was Two Face.
Oh,
That he was gonna
really?
be back. Well, yeah, I mean, as a kid, I didn't really know who that cartoon is how I learned about Batman characters. So until
Oh,
I
yeah,
saw it on
you
the
probably.
cartoon, I didn't know. So it was very, and then the episode where he becomes Two Face was very dramatic. I remember, even as a kid, I remember being very dramatic. So it's doing something like that. And the other way that you could do Two Face still is really focus on the Two Face when he actually becomes Two Face, because that is
Right.
one of the weak points of this movie is how they actually utilize Two Face when he becomes Two Face.
I think I've said this. We might have had this part of the conversation before. His Two Face stuff is there. It's just it's really really shoved in at the end.
Yeah, yeah,
He
it's
flips a
crammed.
coin and he shoots people, but
Yeah.
we never see him like develop a gang or anything like he usually does. Like have like his thugs and rob a bank. I mean, it didn't need to be that specific. It didn't need to be that campy
Well,
or traditional.
and I don't think
But
that would have worked for this Two Face. Like this Two Face again still was coming from the Harvey Dent aspect.
yeah,
I don't know if him
he's still a
raising
DA
it,
in his mind, I guess.
yeah, he was just more kind of about getting in a sense revenge.
Mhm.
Um,
It works for the movie. It's just a
yeah,
little rushed.
yeah,
So I think we get a great Harvey Dent and an okay Two Face.
yeah. It's still a better Two Face than the Tommy Lee Jones Two Face, even his Two
That's
Face
not hard to
parts.
do, yeah.
It's true, but it's still the best on-screen Two Face that we have.
And it's such a shame just to go back. Tommy Lee Jones would have been just such a
He
great
would have
choice
been.
for Two
It
Face.
would. Yeah, he would have been a great Harvey Dent. Just that very. Anyway, but
Yeah.
we don't have to get into that now. Um,
Um, uh, I want to, I guess I want to say, um, give props to Aaron Eckhart as an actor.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I don't have anything to add to that. I guess I just wanted to throw
No,
that out
yeah,
there.
yeah.
A lot of the Harvey Dent relies, I guess, on his presence and charm. I I never really I wouldn't have expected him as a Two Face, but he definitely works as Harvey Dent.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
I thought he were, and I thought what he did as Two Face, like the actor, what Aaron Eckhart did in his Two Face role when he does transition, yeah, I thought he did that really well.
Oh yeah,
Um,
he's a great actor.
and just like how crazy he got, right? Even against against Joker, he's like, here you live, here you die, and he's like focusing. It's just the way he communicates that, the way he freaks out when he sees the double-sided coin and he sees that it's burnt on the other side, knowing then because he gave it to Rachel, he knows he gave it to Rachel, so he knows like, oh, if this coin looks like this, he knows that Rachel's gone.
Mhm.
And then he caught it freaks he freaks out,
And he totally freaks
and he's
out.
just
Yeah,
like again he really just changes as a character, and that's the same actor doing it. And so anytime actors could play one role and then in that same role be a different role, essentially because something so dramatic happens to a character that they basically become a different person. Um, and then when an actor could do that almost seamlessly, that you wouldn't have noticed. Uh, it's like one of those things when people do things really, really good, it almost goes unnoticed,
it makes it look easy. Yeah,
right? And so, but it's not, and so it's just yeah. So yeah, I thought he did a really great job in his whole demeanor as
yeah.
Two
Now that you
Face.
mention it has completely changed. Basically, he's a lot more. He's a whole like jaded aspect
Yeah,
when it comes off.
yeah,
I kind of didn't. I actually didn't really notice the change in the two different characters until you mentioned it. But when you mentioned it, it's exactly like you said. It's not something that you notice because it's just happening so naturally. But
yeah.
yeah, Aaron Eckhart is a great actor and good good choice to have him as another villain opposite of Heath Ledger.
Yeah, yeah. So which that's crazy because you have two really good villain actors in the same movie, which that could sometimes cause it to be clunky. But it
Well,
all connected and it all worked. Now I do
yeah,
have a comment here from one of our viewers says we don't speak about the mid '90s Batman movies, even though Jim Carrey as Riddler and Arnold as Freeze was good. Everything else was extremely bad, mostly script wise. Yeah, honestly, I don't even like Arnold as Freeze, and I like Jim Carrey, but he wasn't the Riddler. Like that way, like the way he played Riddler is not Riddler. Jim Carrey just played Jim Carrey dressed as the Riddler.
I like
It's
Jim
kind of how I
Carrey
take
as
it.
the Riddler.
I liked him in the movie. It was entertaining, but that's not the Riddler. That just wasn't the Riddler.
I think there's only really like two parts in that movie where he's Jim carrying it up for me. At the very end in the climax when he's like
The way he
he's
moves,
calling
the
him
way
Batman and
he
everything.
no, go back and rewatch it. There's a lot of Jim Carrey isms throughout almost his whole
You
his
might be
whole
right
performance.
because I'm
It's
I'm
not it's
remembering
yeah, it's
his
more in his
interaction
body
with first
language.
interaction with Ed Begley Jr., his boss. That's
Yeah,
pretty Jim Carrey.
when he first meets, yeah, it's just
I don't
like
know. I guess
it.
it
It's
just blends
fun.
in. I guess
It's fun to
it doesn't.
watch. He plays it fun, but man, that is just not the Riddler. And Arnold Schwarzenegger just was not. I don't know, just did not work as Mister
He should have
Freeze.
been Bane. Arnold Schwarzenegger is a Batman villain in a movie with Bane, and he's not Bane. It's weird.
Yeah, yeah.
Mr. Freeze isn't. I, but at the same time, well, I like Batman and Robin a whole lot less than Batman Forever. But
Yeah,
if you're
me
gonna
too.
have someone miscast, at least you have someone who's charming and likable, like Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's
Yeah, yeah. I
miscast.
mean, he was
It's
kind
not
of
Mr.
fun, right? He has
Freeze.
this typical Arnold Schwarzenegger one-liners, like everyone
Yeah,
freeze or chill and stuff like
yeah.
that. Like those are, which is funny
Are
because
you
those are just typical Arnold
are you
Schwarzenegger
pointing those out as
'80s.
a positive?
If in a sense, in what you're talking about, at least you kind of have the charm of the actor,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
I
yeah,
like.
yeah.
I like Arnold Schwarzenegger action movies, and
Hmm.
a lot of his dialogue was just very reminiscent of that. Like in Predator when he throws a
Commando
knife at
stuff.
someone and sticks him into the board and he's like, stick around, right? And so
Right.
those were a lot of his lines in Batman and Robin were just stupid lines like that.
I didn't realize that. Yeah, they're kind of. I mean, I knew that he had a lot of one-liners, but it's probably because he's Arnold Schwarzenegger. I didn't realize that
Yeah.
before.
Yeah,
But
I really didn't
anyway,
either. But anyway, but back to
let's
Dark
talk
Knight.
about a yeah, let's talk about a better Batman movie.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
let's go with unless you have a specific topic you'd like to talk
no,
about. I'd
no,
like to
yeah,
talk
if you got
about the
something.
Batsuit. So I know you didn't mention you don't notice a whole lot different about this Batsuit, but this is probably my second favorite rendition of the Batsuit.
Okay.
After I mean I Michael Keaton and Val Kilmer's first Batsuit are pretty much the same thing. It's kind
Right.
of like Val Kilmer's is kind of like a more modernized. I consider it the same Batsuit.
Okay.
I really like this one.
Okay.
I and it's not just because he can move his head, but I don't know. I like the way it looks. It looks modern. It looks practical and it looks realistic.
Okay. Yeah,
So
I just need to pull up a side by side of what he looks like in Batman Begins
you should
and
do
what he
that.
looks with Dark Knight because I
The,
really don't remember it looking different.
the
Um I
Batman Begins
I
costume looks like a
know
Halloween costume
I know you
to me.
talking about like the George Clooney and the second Val Kilmer, right? Because Val Kilmer basically is the transition between the Michael Keaton batsuit and the George Clooney batsuit. Because his first batsuit is the basically the Michael Keaton batsuit, and then when
Right,
his Batcave gets destroyed, he gets the new batsuit, which is basically the same batsuit that George Clooney wears.
right.
Which yeah, I don't like that batsuit either.
Not at
Um,
all.
but let me pull up Batman Begins Batman. I'm gonna do that right now. And The Dark Knight.
It's going to be mostly cape. And then in the Dark Knight one, you're going to see his chest a little bit better.
Okay, so
What
for
are you noticing?
um I don't know. I'm not really noticing a whole lot. At least in the picture I'm looking at currently. I'll show you the picture I'm looking at right now. Let's see if I could can I make this bigger? It's not the best picture. It's the first one I found that kind of does a side by side. I'll share it with you in a second. I'm sharing it with the viewers right now. So just kind of looking at this is the Batman Begins Batman, that's the Dark Knight. Here, I'll share it with you right now, Chris. How do I get back to my messenger? Here we go. I'll just share my screen. So I'm looking at, no. Yeah, let's have you look at this. You're going to see yourself in a second. All right, you see yourself?
Yeah.
Okay. Now let me go back to my other tab. So I'm looking at this. So this is the Batman Begins Batsuit,
Oh, yeah, this isn't the best.
and that's the Dark Knight. I'll see if I can find another one, but this is the first one I saw of a side by side. Um,
Well, the one
I see right
in this,
here is kind of different.
that's one of my least favorite aspects of it. I don't like the way the cape comes up to the collar.
Yeah, I never really
Well,
noticed
this is
that
a little
before.
bit more of a glamour shot.
That's true. That's true.
Mostly it's all cape,
Um,
and I really don't like. I just don't like the where his cape meets his mask.
okay, I see what you're talking about here. I found another picture. I think this is yeah, this is from Batman Begins. I'll bring it over here. Get rid of this
This
ad.
is closer to what I'm used to imagining when I think of this suit.
Yeah, I kind of see what you're talking about with the cowl, the way it is right
Yeah,
here.
the mask.
Yeah,
I don't like the mask as much either.
yeah, I
It's a
kind of see
subtle
what you're talking
difference.
about.
In the second one, it looks like it's a lot more fun to be in. It looks like something I would want to wear
All right, let me
just to
pull
have
up
fun.
the Dark Knight. I'll find it. See if I can find a good Batman
And I
shot.
guess the Dark Knight Batman suit looks closer to something that I would refer to as
You're breaking up quite a bit. All
closer.
right, you there? You're still breaking up.
I think,
Okay, we're gonna stop
like
that. All
all
right. Chris, I'm
gay
not sure if you can hear me,
black
but you are breaking up.
and
Okay.
white.
If I remember right, so Kylo, I'm reading your comment right now. If I remember right, isn't the Batsuit the same or nearly identical between Dark Knight and Rises? I think so, Kylo. I honestly never really noticed a difference between the suits in any of the three movies. Penguin says,
How can you hear me?
"Oh, there you go. I got you back now. Yeah, you broke up a bit ago, so whatever you've been saying, it only came in like one syllable here, one syllable there.
Yeah, I think those are the same suit.
So yeah, so I didn't get anything that you just said after we were talking about the bat suits. I think you're commenting on some things on the bat suits.
Can you hear me now? Am I coming through?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Hello? Yeah. Okay. Just making sure you can hear me.
Okay.
Where were we?
So
Talking
you were
about the
kind
bat
of
suits?
breaking up. Yeah, you're talking about the bat
Oh,
suits. So I'm not sure what you were just saying.
um, I think the last thing I said was the one in the Dark Knight, and yeah, it's the one in the Dark Knight and Rises are the same suit. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Um, and the Dark Knight, the one it looks a lot more fun. It looks like something I would want to wear.
Yeah.
And it looks like it reminds me of what I would think of when I think of like a modern Black Knight sort of armor.
Hmm.
Um, a lot different than the Batman Begins one. Although those two shots that you showed me didn't seem to be that much different.
Yeah, the
I
biggest
guess
difference
it's
I saw.
mostly the cape and the mask
Yeah, that's
that
kind of what
bugs
I
me.
saw was how the cowl connected with the suit and how the cape was.
I
And
swear the chest piece is different too.
I don't know, I didn't really see a big difference there. In the at least in the pictures I was looking at.
What are we doing here?
I don't know. Did you hear me?
Yeah, not in the pictures that I saw. Yeah, it's just cutting in and out every once in a while.
Okay. Um, but I never noticed that. Like watching the movies, I never really noticed how different or I never really noticed the differences in the suits between the three movies at all. I
Huh.
now they remark a difference because in the second one he asks for a new suit and he wants to be able to turn his head. They even make a point to say that
Hmm.
in conversation. So I knew in functionality there were some differences, but in terms of the actual look, I didn't really notice a difference between the suits in the three movies.
Okay. Just different in tastes, I guess. I just always seemed a little bit more practical. I think it's maybe even a little bit lighter in color. It might be a little bit bluer. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I did in the pictures. I couldn't tell if I was just lighting or whatnot, but in the pictures it did look like maybe the Batman Begins one was darker.
That was probably one of the best images of the Batman Begins suit I've ever seen. So that's something to be said.
um, okay, yeah, but
What
overall,
else?
Dark Knight, for me is one of not only the best Batman movies, but one of the best superhero movies.
Yeah, it's up
Um,
there.
it's just I love the dialogue, I love the pacing, I love the action. Um, I really don't have any real like major complaints. I don't have anything that I find even boring. I am entertained in every aspect of the movie.
I think
Um,
I agree.
the only my only real complaint is just wishing for more, like more of Two Face. Um, so there's nothing in the movie that I don't like. The things that I don't like are things that just aren't in it.
Hmm. I think I agree with you for the most part. I think I would say that
Uh huh.
if there is a flaw with the movie,
Okay.
it's that the Two-Face stuff at the end is rushed. And it's not just because it's rushing the character, but because it kind of feels like, well, we just had this climax with the Joker, and he's fighting these people and he's hanging them off the wire and everything.
Yeah.
And then he has this climax with the Joker, and now we have this other action climax. And it's not really action, but
Yeah,
it's
but
just this
it's
tense. I remember watching it the first time in the theaters and being
yeah.
kind of like a little overwhelmed with what the movie was asking of me, I guess. Just like it feels like two consecutive climaxes to me. That aspect of it is
Kind of. Kind of.
a
I see
little
what you're
expensive,
saying.
but if there's a complaint, that would be it.
For me though, I'm not.
Heavy emphasis on the word if.
Yeah, yeah. For me, I'm not. I'm not bugged by that at all because for me that is like his conversation with Joker can't be face to face because there's really no confrontation. Batman beats Joker face to face every time. Like
Mhm.
Joker's not a fighter. And so the way Joker gets any kind of one up on Batman is through, ironically, his schemes, even though he's not a schemer, according to himself, right? But that is how he gets his one ups on Batman. That's where he's a threat to Batman, is not face to face because there is no threat then. And so for me, the whole last part of Harvey Dent, Two Face, um, is actually part of Joker's plan. Is proving that anyone could fall, and he made Harvey Dent, Gotham's White Knight, fall, and everyone in Gotham is going to know it now because he already killed cops. He's now kidnapped Commissioner Gordon's family, and he's like, "That's my ace." Like, yeah, you beat me on this on this hand to hand fight. Of course you are, but I still won. Because in his mind, he's thinking that Two Face is going to do what Two Face basically does.
Mhm.
And the only way that they could defeat Joker's plan in that regard is by basically lying and by Batman taking the blame for everything and allowing Harvey Dent to still be the White Knight even though he's the one who fell. And that's the only way they could really defeat the Joker. And so for me, that's still part of the Joker plot, even though Joker's not
That
in it.
makes sense.
Now I guess, but I still see what you're saying because it does feel like almost two different climaxes. Because the climax almost feels like the climax isn't so much Batman and Joker, but the boats, right? It's about to be
Mhm.
midnight. Batman's trying to beat Joker, so Joker doesn't blow up the boats, and you have the whole climax of the boats themselves. Like, are they going to blow up the other boat? Right, and that's really where, and that it's coming to the end of the movie, so that feels like a climax already. And then you have this other climax with Two Face. So I can see what you're saying, where it almost feels like we have two climaxes.
Mhm.
Um,
I still like it though.
but yeah, for me it worked. Like I never really thought about that until right now, and you just and just talking about it with you. Um,
And
I
I'd never really considered it on the aspect of it still being part of the Joker's plan.
yeah, well, and Joker
Although,
even
I mean,
mentions it.
obviously it is, but
Yeah,
yeah.
at the end of the when he beats Joker and he's swinging upside down, he says he basically mentions it as his like, you don't think I would have gone hand in hand with you if I didn't have like Ace up my sleeve or something like that, and referring to Dent. He's very specific on that is his plan. But I want to read this comment we have from Kylo Greenway. Says the best thing is Dent's legacy lived to the next movie. His effects was still around. Right. So that's a good segue to Dark Knight Rises, which is how this movie connects straight into Dark Knight Rises. That's how Dark Knight Rises begins. Is how the Dark Knight ends. But before we move on to Dark Knight Rises, do you have anything else you want to say about Dark Knight?
I think I did, but I don't think I can think of it right off the top of my head. I guess closing thoughts is it's one of the best Batman. It's one of the best superhero movies because I just love how mature it is and
Yeah.
just how detailed the plot and the script are. And it's like it almost doesn't even need to be a Batman movie. It could just be a cop movie. Um, that's that's how well handled like all these mobsters are.
Hmm.
By the way, did you know that that's Spawn that he kills? Um, that first guy he tells the with the knife, the black guy, Gamble. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The first time he tells his story about how he got his scars,
Yeah,
and
that's
then
Spawn.
nah, I didn't know that.
Okay,
Okay.
just a little trivia.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Yeah. So for
uh,
me, Dark Knight is one of the best Batman movies. Um, yeah, it's definitely up there. It probably is my favorite Batman movie. Even I really did like the Batman, the one that just came out.
mhm.
I really like the '89. I need to go back and rewatch. It's been a while since I've watched the Burton Batman movies. Particularly the '89 one. So I know the '89 one is up there. But I wonder, for me, I always have to challenge myself on stuff like that. It's like, how much of this is nostalgia that I like
Yeah.
versus like actual quality, like Batman movie? And so I always have to try to, I always want to try to watch it as unbiased, without nostalgia lens, and get a accurate assessment as I can, acknowledging that nostalgia is going to seep in there anyway.
I feel like I want to warn you about the 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 issues that I have with Batman '89,
Yeah.
but I also don't want to prime you.
Yeah, I plan on watching them here shortly after. Actually, no. I kind of plan on those being the next because I just finished the Nolan movies again, so I plan on watching the Burton movies next. Um,
Remember that the action sucks. That's what I'll
no,
say.
yeah, I remember that. I do remember that.
There are a
It's
few good action
yeah.
scenes and there are
Well,
a
he
few
had
fun
very
action
minimal ability to move. He had very yeah. He couldn't
yeah.
really move in the suit. But anyway,
Um,
but
do
yeah,
you
no,
have any closing thoughts on The Dark Knight?
yeah, I mean, just other than just what I was saying, is just one of the best Batman movies. Just really love what they did with Batman, and it was really good story. Like the plot of the movie, I really
Right. Yeah.
enjoyed. Just the
One of the
themes that it
strongest
brought
things.
out, and it wasn't in your face themes. Like that's one of my issues with Dark Knight Rises, is I don't feel like they handled themes well. In Dark Knight, the way they played the themes, and it was very organic and very integrated in the plot. I really enjoyed.
I have a question before we move on.
Okay.
You mentioned that you like you think that The Dark Knight has the best relationship between Batman and Gordon. Is there anything you can?
Oh,
What are the moments that you can point out that are like your favorites? That
not necessarily best moments. I think they have the best relationship.
okay.
So not necessarily like on-screen moments, but like they're working together. Like we see them really working together in this one. Like in the beginning of the movie, of the whole like they're trying to set up this sting against the mob, and like they did this whole like money thing, radiated money, and he's like working one on one with Gordon, and like
Yeah, that's great.
and just and there's multiple scenes like that throughout the movie of him kind of working one on one with Gordon. Um, and then when Gordon dies, like we know he doesn't actually die, but there's a
Oh
scene where we
yeah.
think he dies, and he's even there. Batman's even there to the family, and the family's blaming him, and he's like, you really feel it. Like
Hmm.
he really feels it, and we
And
the
then he's
audience
really
really feel
pissed
it.
and he goes fight Eric
And yeah, then
Roberts.
he goes fights
His name is
Maroni.
He plays Maroni. I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
Maroni. Yeah, it's Maroni.
yeah. That's Maroni.
Falcone's in the first
Right. And so he goes and fights him, and then Gordon saves Batman, right? Because Batman like refuses to kill Joker, run him over in the cool chase action scene on his motorcycle, and he instead swerves away from Joker and kind of crashes, and now he's like knocked out. He knocked himself out because he was kind of indecisive on whether or not he was going to take out Joker there. And then it's Gordon who saves Batman and pulls a gun on Joker.
one. Oh yeah, that is one of the best Gordon Batman moments.
And so so now and then his son says, "Did Batman save you, Dad?" It's like, actually, I saved him. Um, and then you have the kind of good cop, bad cop scene of Gordon talking to Joker for trying to figure out where Dent is because Dent never made it home. And
Uh huh.
then he leaves, and Joker even says, "Is this the good cop, bad cop routine?" He's like, "Not exactly." And he like leaves, and then turns on the light, and Batman's already there in the room, and just all of that kind of stuff. And then at the very end of the movie, you have Batman and Gordon just kind of talking about, what do we do about Two Face now? What do we do about Harvey that he's dead?
Mm-hmm.
And they're kind of conspiring with each other about, do we let Joker win? But it's
Yeah.
and so you could kind of understand, like it's like we
That's fun.
typically think of conspiracy and conspiring and lying as bad things, which I mean they are, but
Right.
here they're on a like kind of a moral ethical dilemma.
Yeah, they're
Do
trying
we
to
let
do what's the greater good in
do
a
we
very
let Joker
complicated
win?
situation.
Yeah, and so it's those interactions that he has with like he basically has to convince Gordon, who just had Harvey Dent almost kill his family, had a gun to his son's head, and he still manages to convince Harvey Dent or Gordon to lie about Harvey Dent. And so you just see them really working with each other. Now, I think the Batman, the new movie, did a really good job with the Gordon and Batman's relationship as well.
Yeah, it was
Um,
hard to do it better, but I think they one upped the Gordon aspect
and
from
so
the Nolan films.
that's what I mean. Where I think like here they really worked much more as a team throughout the movie.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, that's what I was kind of getting at.
All right.
Um, oh, one of my I know where we want to move on to Dark Knight Rises, but I just remember another favorite thing that I liked in this movie is in the interrogation scene where Joker gives Batman the addresses to where Harvey and Rachel are,
Hmm.
but he intentionally gives him the wrong address so that wherever Batman thinks he's going, he's actually going to the opposite. Because he says, because Gordon even says, which one are you going to? And he says, to Rachel, right? And
Hmm.
he's remembering the address Joker gave him, but Joker didn't give him Rachel's address, even though he said he did. He said Rachel's at blah 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 blah, so he's going to blah 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 blah, but he goes to Dent,
He's obviously going to get there first.
and he gets there first, and that's why he saves Dent. But he didn't intend to save Dent. He wanted to save Rachel, and so I like that Joker, even in Joker's chaos, still was being chaotic and gave him right directions, but associated him with wrong people intentionally. Um,
I didn't know this. I think it was a YouTube video that relayed this to me. But technically, sort of cheating. Christopher Nolan kind of snuck the Riddler into The Dark Knight.
really,
It's crappy. I don't really like it. Remember the guy who tries to blackmail Morgan Freeman about the stuff?
yeah.
His name is Mr. Reese. Mysteries. Mystery.
Okay.
I had to have it explained to me by some YouTube video. So
I
technically, the Riddler is
suppose.
kind of in there, but it's
Yeah.
really, yeah, it's kind of bogus.
Okay. No, that's not the
So that's just another
Riddler.
little trivia. But
Okay.
I mentioned it because the whole switching the Rachel and Harvey Dent address, that's kind of a Riddler thing to do it too,
Yeah, yeah,
in a
yeah.
way.
I can see
But
that.
but
But it plays to
you
this
know,
Joker style of just chaos.
it's more
He's
like a
just throwing
trick. It's
chaos.
not a Riddler. It's not a
Yeah,
riddle.
it's
It's
a
more of
trick.
a
It's
trick.
chaos. It's
It's
yeah,
more of it's more of the Joker. It's like a Joker kind of Riddler thing.
yeah. Okay.
Um,
Well, we are almost 2.5 hours in, so
oh
let's
wow,
let's let's
pretty quick.
transition to Dark Knight Rises unless there's anything more pertinent you have on
No,
Dark Knight.
um, I unless you have somewhere to go, I have I think I know the best place to start with Dark
Oh,
Knight Rises.
yeah, go ahead.
The villain.
Okay.
How do you think? Because after the Joker, you gotta do
Yeah,
something.
that's
Do you think that Bane filled those shoes?
no. I don't. Now, it's definitely hard, right? Like Heath Ledger's Joker was just so good.
How are you gonna top that?
Like it's you almost
And there's a
can't.
saying, your movie is only as good as your villain. So that when you got like the top tier villain, how can you outdo that? How can you make a better
Now,
movie?
I think you still could have. I think there are a couple things I think they could have done. One, if they didn't kill off Harvey Dent and made him more prominent in the third one,
That could have been
potentially.
something.
Now they would have had to definitely change a lot of the story of the Dark Knight. So I don't know how well that would work in general, but just kind of more of had they focused more on Joker as the bad guy in Dark Knight, and that leads to the transformation of Two Face at the end, and
Hmm.
that then is what then goes into the third one, and then having Two Face be the primary villain rather than him doing Two Facey stuff, squished into
Hmm.
the last little bit of Dark Knight. I would
Right.
have made that like the movie of the next one where he is now Two Face. You saw him as Harvey Dent, and now we see him as Two Face. So done
And he's a
something like
very
that,
realistic villain to use.
and yeah, I think Riddler could have been a strong candidate for the third movie and played it up very similar to how this Riddler in the Batman was in terms
Right.
of it's more adult type, like almost like Saw, like the movie
I
Saw.
think that was the talk at the time before Rises came out.
And so having that kind of Riddler where it's like just these deadly puzzles that he puts people in, and it would have been a good contrast in the sense that what Joker, like it's kind of what we were talking about before. Joker is philosophically in conflict with Batman. Riddler could have been like the intellectual conflict of Batman,
Hmm.
right? Ra's al Ghul already was the combat conflict of Batman. He's the one who trained him, and then you have kind of the fight scene there. Now, not the best choreographed, but that was part of the conflict was they're kind of equally matched in combat, right?
Right.
And so
The
that's his
physical part.
physical conflict as Batman Begins. The second one with the Joker could have been the philosophical conflict, and then the third one had it been Riddler, which is what I was really hoping for, could have been that intellectual conflict. Because that's what Riddler's all
That's
about, is
interesting.
trying to
Uh-huh.
challenge, prove how much smarter he is and stuff like that. It's not a
That's
matter of
that's interesting.
philosophy, it's a matter of just intellect. Um and then you
Yeah.
could have done very adult type traps and riddles that kill you kind of
That's what I
thing.
was hoping for.
And that's how I think it could have been done. Um, Bane was just another brute, um, and it was the league. A lot of my issues with Dark Knight Rises is a lot of my issues with like Return of the Jedi, where it's
Oh, second
just
Death Star
yeah,
sort of
second Death
situation.
Star, Tatooine again. Right here, it's the League of Shadows again. Really, is ultimately what we find out is actually who's behind all this is League of Shadows, and they're just trying to destroy Gotham again. Well, that was the plot of the first one. The plot of this one's the kind of the main theme. Batman's lesson again is what do you do when you fall down? You get back up. He already learned that
Might I
lesson
have
in Batman Begins. And so, are you still there? Okay, I
Yeah,
didn't know if
yeah.
it froze on you. Um,
Sorry, I was just. Go ahead.
yeah. So I just there's just a lot in Dark Knight Rises that, and it's I don't know. I just kind of find it boring. There's just a lot of boring elements in Dark Knight Rises. Um,
It might be the longest one. It feels like it does feel like the longest
it
one.
feels long. And there's not a lot of action in it. There's barely any Batman in it. He is not Batman in this Batman movie in but maybe two scenes that I could think of.
He, like, broke Bruce Wayne for most of it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's no fun to watch. For the majority of the movie, he's in jail in this tunnel doing nothing. And that's the majority. That's a big chunk of the movie, at least in the center. Even
Mhm.
in the beginning, he's broke Bruce Wayne. He is how he starts out. Is just broke Bruce Wayne with a cane,
Yeah,
and then
physically broken.
yeah, and then he gets broken by Bane, which I mean that's the cool scenes in this movie is his two fight scenes with Bane.
Mhm.
Both of those fight scenes, I like both of the his fight scene in the sewer where everything he does against Bane is just ineffective. He
Right.
throws little things at him and it just blows up around Bane, and Bane's not even phased by it. He
Yeah, he's
turns
used to
off the
that guy.
lights, and then Bane has his famous line, right? Of you only adopt the darkness. I was born into it, right? The shadows betray you because I am the darkness, or something like that. And
Mhm.
all right, and so like every little technique and trick in what Batman has is just completely ineffective to Bane, which I like. It makes Bane a threat.
Right.
And then you get the scene where Bane breaks his back, right? That very famous kind of comic book pictured scene of breaking the bat. Um, all of that was cool. I liked all of that. And then I like his fight scene at the end of the movie when he finally returns to Gotham at
Mhm.
the very end, and he frees the cops, and then he's fighting Bane in the snow. I just like some of the choreograph there. It's not that long of a fight scene, um, but
I like that fight scene because you really feel the climb. You really feel Batman's struggle from feeling like, oh man, can I take this guy down,
yeah,
to the end where he's found his footing to the point where he can even be kicking Bane's at he can even be fighting Bane and
yeah,
winning while also taking out this other goon and snagging his gun from him
yeah,
and
yeah.
everything. That
So
he's
it's
worked his way
rewarding.
up.
It's rewarding.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a very
yes,
cinematically rewarding
and
fight scene
that's what I
to
like
watch.
about it as well. So those are like some
I
of my favorite scenes.
I think the sewer fight scene is technically a better one. I think it's more I think it's more engaging. Unfortunately,
Yes,
Batman loses,
right.
but it's just a better
Yes,
it's a better fight
yes,
scene.
yes. I agree.
Um, to be talking about those, just to mention them, Batman movies have never been really known for their spectacular action scenes specifically, but I
Which
would
is
say that
interesting because
Rises
he's
has
supposed to
the
be a
best one.
ninja. Like,
Right.
he's supposed to be a
Well,
well choreographed. I mean,
he's got his
he fights in the
gadgets.
shadows and gadgets and stuff like that.
And he fights these funny costume villains. It's about having fun, creative action, not necessarily about. Even though he is a ninja, that's
Yeah,
just an aspect to it. But I like that Rises actually puts that ninja aspect to work,
yeah,
and it's it's a little bit weird because like I'm watching these fight scenes, like the one in the sewer, and as an audience, you're supposed to acknowledge these two characters. Okay, these are the two best fighters basically in the world, but this is probably not how one of those fight scenes would actually. It's not how in real life that kind of a fight would actually go.
hmm.
It's too choreographed, too clean, but that's what cinema is all about. So there's a little. I forget what I'm trying to say, but it's a good fight scene. I like
Yeah,
the way it's done. It doesn't need to hold on to all of the realism up to that point, but
yeah. I have no issues
that's
with those fight scenes. I have no issues with them.
it's
For me, those are the best parts of the
they
movie.
feel a little methodical, I guess.
Yeah,
If there's any complaint,
no,
it's like one
yeah,
thing happens, but it's also at the same time taking my complaint from the first movie and just eradicating that complaint and making me just allowing me to just watch the fight, where the fist goes and how much of an impact it has. That's what I've always wanted to see in a Batman fight scene. and this movie really delivered twice.
Yeah.
So that's one of the aspects I like about it.
So yeah, so
Uh,
those are some of the aspects I like about it as well. Um, but just the
I like
whole,
Bane as a villain. I think it's a step down from Joker.
yeah,
Uh, I do think I feel his presence. I feel your complaint too, where Ra's al Ghul was already that physical challenge, and so we could have done something different
right,
than another bigger physical challenge. But I
right.
like if you were gonna do something different and more, what they had to do was top Joker, or at least attempt to top Joker.
Well, top Joker or do
So
something so different than Joker that you don't really want to compare the two, and that's what they
that's
did. That's what they did with
that yeah.
Bane. Yeah,
See, he's a big muscular guy. The Bane's version of a threat is much different than Joker's version of a
right,
threat.
right.
My one of my main complaints with Bane is, um, one of his lines are, "I am the League of Shadows. I'm here to fulfill Ra's al Ghul's destiny."
Yeah.
But doesn't he hate Ra's al Ghul? Didn't Ra's al Ghul imprison him? Why would he be at all concerned about fulfilling Ra's al Ghul's destiny? Is it like some kind of ambition thing? Like, I hate you, so I can do something better. I can do your goal better than you can.
Well,
That's not really
I mean,
telegraphed,
and what we
as far
even
as I
find
know.
out though is he's not working on his own ideology, right? He's not the leader. It ends
It's
up that
Talia,
yeah, it ends up he's just working. He's just kind of the grunt for Talia.
which the whole movie I knew that was Talia.
Oh yeah.
Even when they were calling her something else, it didn't trick me at all. I think because I know who Talia is, and I don't know. I don't remember because I was looking up the cast and everything for The Dark Knight Rises before it came out, and I was
Oh,
paying attention to who was who. But I don't know why, but for some
you're breaking up again.
reason, it was just super odd. That was probably they had sex. Are you still there? Are you frozen?
Yeah, you kind of broke up.
Well, anyway,
Let's see
you're
here.
still here, but choppy.
Okay. How well can you hear
The
me?
audio's fine. No, can you hear me?
Yeah, a little bit.
I can hear you. The visuals just it got really fuzzy.
Okay. Yeah, you got fuzzy on me too. But now I can't hear you.
Outside of the actual
Hmm.
plot, Bane's actual plot.
Hold on,
Okay,
Chris.
can you
Hold
hear
on.
me?
Yeah, you're breaking up quite a bit.
We are cutting in and out here and there.
Yeah.
Oh, my thing's
Um.
telling me we got poor connection.
Yeah. But I am hearing you better now. I think. At least I was.
I can hear you, but you stopped moving. Oh, there you go.
Okay. Okay. So you were saying. Let's.
How
Oops.
is everything?
Oh my goodness. Where's your video?
Okay, you're still fuzzy, but
There you
okay. I think it's working now.
go.
How am
Okay.
I coming through?
Yeah, I can hear
And
you
you
better
stopped
now.
moving again.
I can hear you better.
All right, let's give it a shot. Where were we? Were we talking about? I think we're
So you're
talking
talking
about
about
Bane
Talia. You're talking about. Then I think you're talking about the plot. You're starting to talk about the
or
plot.
oh Talia. For
Hmm.
some reason, I knew that was. I was starting to say that um, Bane as a character, I felt him. I felt it as a. I felt his presence as a threat, but overall, his motivation and his motivation tied in with the plot, I feel got pretty convoluted, and to this day, I kind of couldn't tell you what exactly was going on in the story. I mean, I know Talia wants to blow up Gotham, but
Yeah.
there's something that happens in the middle. There's some kind of
Oh man, this connection is just not working.
story with Bane being her protector, and why was she thrown in the prison? Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't even know why she was thrown in the pit.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. This whole.
Why why was Talia as a child thrown into the pit? I can't even remember. Seems kind of important,
Oh
but I
no
don't
no
even
no!
know.
It explains it. It explains it. Okay, so this is how it goes.
I'm sure it does.
Yeah, Ra's al Ghul was in love with a girl,
Okay.
and I forget exactly who that girl was. I think it was some chief's daughter or something like that.
Okay.
And she gets thrown into the pit. Not Ra's al Ghul, but the Ra's al Ghul's wife.
Okay.
And she was pregnant, which and so she was born. Talia was born in the pit because
Okay.
her mom was thrown in there, and that had to do with some forbidden love between Ra's al Ghul and her mom or something like that. But she's
Okay. I
born
guess
in the pit.
I didn't. That was the part I was missing. That her mom was thrown in jail. That Ra's al Ghul's love was in jail. I
Yeah.
guess I figured that she died.
Well, she died in the pit, which I mean, in Batman Begins, they do have and it flashbacks in Dark Knight Rises to the conversation of Bruce even asks about kind of his backstory a little bit,
Yeah,
and he
that's
kind
one
of
of the best
mentioned,
parts in Begins.
yeah, it's on the ice and all that, and he kind of explains, that he had a woman and whatnot, and that's basically
Okay.
all it does, and so this kind of carries on that plot element of
So it's
Ra's al
really
Ghul.
complicated, and we had to like work it through together. And it's not even Bane's plan. So
Yeah,
that's kind of a weakness of the
yeah,
movie.
it's all a it all ends up being League of Shadows plan to destroy Gotham again. Um,
And the main character villain isn't even the actual threat; it's someone else. So that's
right.
there's like a it's like a faded effect going on there that
Which
kind
kind
of
of happens in Batman Begins, right? Scarecrow is the one who's kind of carrying the movie in Batman Begins as a villain.
yeah
And
for most of
then
it.
you realize at the end of the movie, oh, it's actually all League of Shadows, and actually it's Ra's al Ghul, right? And then Liam
Yeah,
Neeson
he
comes back
kind of
at
does
the
the same
end,
thing twice. Is
and
what you're
then
saying?
and then in Dark Knight Rises, you think it's Bane that's kind of carrying the movie as the villain, and he is carrying the movie as the villain, but then it ends up, oh no, he's actually just working for the League of Shadows and Ra's al Ghul's daughter. And so just very similar, too similar to Batman Begins in my tasting, and it just was not even as good. Um, and it wasn't as entertaining. It was just like I don't the fact that Batman had been away for 8 years, like I don't know, I didn't really like that.
That seemed
And
weird. Yeah,
yeah, and it just feels like if and just there just wasn't really Batman. There really wasn't Batman in this movie, and for the majority of the movie, Bruce is broken. He's either a crippled old man in the beginning of the movie, or he's a broken man in prison, and he's not really doing anything. And this
I
is a
can see
Batman movie,
that.
but it's not really about Batman. Instead, it centers on kind of Gotham, and now to its credit, some of the things that I like is it really does pay off um, the consequences of the Dark Knight. So
Hmm.
the things that happen in Dark Knight had meaning because it really plays into the plot of this movie. Like Harvey Dent, and then it is revealed that Harvey Dent was in fact the bad guy. Right? He reads Gordon's letter. Gordon's been wanting to kind of reveal this truth that they've been lying all along about who Harvey was. And so he had this letter. And so that kind of so it plays into that in it. But yeah, just the whole plot of it is just so it's the weakest plot of all three movies, I think. And
A little all over the
and
place.
it's right, and that's what makes it weak is it's just so it's it's a mess. It's a mess of a plot.
And ultimately, everything kind of falls on Talia al Ghul as like the main villain.
Right.
But as like the audience, I don't really care about her. I don't really have any feelings about her much as a villain or much even as a character. And I'm
Yeah.
wondering why. Like I remember like halfway through the movie, she has sex with Bruce Wayne, but she hates him, right? She wants to really kill him. Why how could she bring herself to do something like that?
I
Even
don't know if
even
she
just to
hates him.
well, why is she trying to kill him? She stabs him.
She tries to kill him because he's a obstacle to her ultimate plan, which is to destroy Gotham. I don't really even understand why she really
Right.
wants to destroy Gotham, other than that's what her dad wanted to do, and I guess that's her really only motivation. Is Daddy wanted
We don't
this,
know anything about her.
but
Yeah.
she doesn't seem to have any actual grudge against Batman for killing her dad. If she does, it's
That was
only
the
in
only
a very quick bit of dialogue. I don't remember that being like really part of it. It was just more about just doing what Ugh. Just doing what Daddy died trying to do. And so her whole grudge against Batman wasn't so much that Batman killed her dad. At least I don't remember that being part of it. But it was more that Batman was just being an obstacle to her plan. Oh man. All right. I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Yeah, you're. I see you talking, but you're. I can't hear you at all. Are you muted? Did you mute yourself? I can't hear any word you're saying. Um. Here, let's. I'm just gonna try to recall you, and then let's see. Okay, I see it. So yeah, I'm gonna end the call, and then we'll try calling back in to finish this up. Let's see. We'll just try this, and we'll try that. Oh, oh, come on. Okay. Don't know how to get back in the group. Okay, there he goes. Okay. Can you hear me?
Everything working?
I
Hear
think
me?
so. Yep.
Okay. Is this still part of the same stream or however that works?
Yeah, I didn't end the stream.
Okay.
So we are still streaming.
Okay. All right. Where can we go from there?
All
We were
right, so we
talking
talked
about how
about
Talia didn't really work.
yeah, Talia, the villains.
Oh, I remember last time we were talking about Rises. You were trying to think of where the Scarecrow was in.
Oh yeah, and so yeah, he's
I
the
think I'm in all
judge.
three movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably the least satisfying.
Oh man, I need to go blow my nose or sneeze or something. I'll be right back. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Is my audio working?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
All right. Yeah. So yeah, I just watched Dark Knight Rises last night, and yeah, those are just kind of my biggest complaints, but those are pretty major complaints. Um, it's just the plot. It's just kind of a boring movie. During the middle section of the movie, um, there's like no Batman, no Bruce Wayne, and the
But we have
little
Robin.
yeah, um, you have Robin who figured out who Bruce Wayne was because he knew the look of someone who put
Because
on
of
a
Batman.
face, and so and you don't really even have Gordon. Gordon gets
Right.
taken out in the beginning of the movie, and
And his
he's
family leaves him in between movies, which I don't like.
yeah,
I mean, it's
and,
not a big deal, but I don't
so
like that they added it.
it's just like yeah. So there's like no almost no Gordon, no Batman, no Bruce Wayne in a Batman movie. And so for me, this is definitely the weakest one. It's my least favorite of the Nolan movies.
I technically agree. I still like the movie, though.
Um, Bane's voice in this one, we talked about voices. Bane's voice in this one, when I saw it in theaters, really bugged me.
Oh, really?
Just yeah, it was like
I
the
can see that.
voiceover,
Uh huh.
and but it sounded like it didn't match. It didn't match the environment that they were in. It sounded like a recording.
Yeah, I think it is.
Well, yeah. So I went and learned and looked into it, and they had to. They people couldn't understand Bane when they first filmed it. It was too muffled, and so they had Tom Hardy redo all his lines, and it sounds like that. It sounds like a sound booth um dialogue. It's
It's
so
so
clean.
distant from the rest of
Yeah.
everything else.
Yes. Yes. It doesn't sound like it's natural to the environment
Hmm.
at all. It sound yeah, it really stood out to me when I was watching it. Um,
I can see. I actually like it. I actually like that, but I can see that drawing someone out of the movie.
now now that was on my first showing when I saw it in theaters. Since
Oh,
then, it hasn't bugged me as much. Like I just
oh,
watched it last night and it didn't really bug me.
uh-huh.
But part of me,
It's
I
still
just
like that though.
kind of accepted it. Well, I remember the first time in theaters, I actually had a hard time understanding what he was saying as
Oh.
well. So not only did it seem outside of the environment he was in, but I had a hard time even understanding the words he was saying.
Which was the whole reason they re-recorded it in the first place.
Now, when I watched it on my Blu-ray yesterday, I didn't have that problem. I was able to hear him. So I don't know if the Blu-ray cleaned it up at all, or it's just maybe just
Maybe.
in the theater I was in, just the way the sound was. I don't know.
There
Um,
are still some lines where to this day, I have no idea what it is he's saying.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that could be maybe, but in general, I didn't really notice it. I liked Bane as a character in this movie until the end. I liked the idea of him having his own kind of plot, his own element. He was a terrorist. I liked the original, like the plot that ends up being fake. That he was a renegade League of Shadows person who was kicked out of the League of Shadows, which I mean I guess part of that we don't even know how much of that is even true.
I figured that part was true.
But he plays into it, he mentions it in the story. So yeah, so maybe. And and so but I liked that he was just like this terrorist who just for some reason picked Gotham to destroy. I wish that would have
Mhm.
been developed a little bit more differently. Like it had they just really stuck with Bane as the bad guy. Um,
That's the thing. The plot just got too convoluted for its own good.
yeah, and but I did like the character until it was revealed that he really wasn't the bad guy. I mean, he was a bad guy, but not the bad guy.
I
Um,
yeah, I can I understand that That's pretty much how I feel. Basically, I don't think it doesn't take away much from the villain as a whole. It
Yeah,
mostly impacts the story,
right.
which you know the story is a pretty big part of a movie.
Yeah,
Um, I as far as like the villain goes, I like that they did something a little bit different than the Joker. It was kind of what they did with Ra's al Ghul. He's another fighter from the League of Shadows, but it's a little bit different. He's more of a it's more like a brick wall than a cunning warrior that Ra's al Ghul was.
yeah,
I
but
kind of felt that. I have to get across that I really felt him as a physical threat.
yeah.
That
He
part
definitely
worked for
was. I mean,
me. It's a
he
lot
beat
of
up
other
Batman.
things. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean that was one of the good qualities of him is he did, even in his introduction in how he takes out the CIA agents in the plane. I mean that was
Hmm.
cool. I had no issue with that, and it just kind of shows him as a threat. Um, his plot, like let's take out the League of Shadows for a second, and just like the way he articulates his plan. Now we know that the city's gonna blow up no matter what, right? And there really is no trigger man, right? But he gives this idea that there's a random person who has the trigger to this bomb, and he's holding the city hostage for. And the reason, according to him, now we know it's all fake, but according to him, the whole reason why he's holding the city hostage is to prove some social point and about society in a sense. That's pretty much what Joker was doing. So that's
Yeah,
where
when you're
that's what,
describing that, it made me think of Joker.
right, and that's this whole thing. It's like one of you will have the trigger, and we will have a Gotham where you can make it however you want it to be, right? And that's kind of how he articulates it after he blows up like the football field. Um,
Hmm.
it's like he takes out the cops, and he's like, let's just see how people will be without order. That was the Joker's plan.
Yeah,
Um, so like yeah, so that I didn't really like
that
that.
probably, yeah, that probably impacts how I feel about it. It's kind of like in another way, a second Death Star sort of thing, I
Yeah,
guess.
exactly. It was the same, and it's just I wish it could have been more unique to the villain, and
Yeah,
it wasn't, and that's why I go back to Riddler. I think Riddler could have been unique. I think that could have been a better plot in a unique villain in a different kind of challenge for Batman.
back in the
Bane, they
day,
had to
oh,
do a hodgepodge of everything they've already done.
I do like Bane as a villain. I'm glad we got those fight scenes. Back in the day, a lot of the talk was I don't know if anyone ever approached these actors, but it was rumored that Johnny Depp was going to be the Riddler and Philip Seymour Hoffman was going to be Penguin.
Huh.
I wonder. I don't know if Nolan ever would have done Penguin, but I could have seen Johnny Depp as a Riddler. He might have worked in a Christopher Nolan movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know who I
So
would have
people were
casted.
thinking about it, and that was what was on people's minds, and I was hoping for a Riddler.
Yeah.
Um, I think Bane mostly worked. It's just like we said that, or at least my feeling is just that the whole story just got way too complicated and it entangled with how we as
Bane
the audience feel about Bane.
Bane
Go ahead.
as a character worked in the
Yeah,
movie. I agree. I agree that Bane as a character worked up until the reveal, and for me, then he doesn't work anymore.
that's where the whole story just kind
But
of.
Bane as a character worked, but his the, everything that has to do with the plot, I don't like. And then the whole thing where they go steal Bruce's fingerprints just so that they can make an illegal stock trade to
Oh yeah.
that, which is fraud. Like which they mention in the movie, like, okay, for right now you're broke, but I mean, everyone knows this is fraud, so like you'll get your money back. Well, they even mention it in the movie, but it's like, what kind of irritates me is that was such a social statement on what was going on at the time because that was
It
when the
was a
whole
Wall
like
Street thing,
yeah the whole Wall Street and the 1% aspect and we are the 99 and this movie just kind of really played up a social commentary to that kind of stuff and I don't like it when movies do that.
which is kind of weird. I thought that Christopher Nolan was a pretty conservative person. That's
Yeah,
what I get
I
from
don't
his
know,
work.
but
The whole like a lot of we didn't touch on it, but in Dark Knight, a lot of the thematically, I think artistically, Christopher Nolan was making a statement on the Patriot Act, the way the way that the cell phones were being used against the Joker, and how
I
it's
mean,
a little rushed, but
yeah,
the
there
way
is
that
that element
Morgan
there,
Freeman
but
has
that's
a good
not
time with it.
really that's definitely an exaggerated form of the Patriot Act, if
Oh yeah,
anything. But this was like very like spot on like in your face aspect of it all, especially what was going on around that time. And just the whole social commentary of it, I didn't care for at all, and that's why. So for me, thematically, it was just the weakest one.
there's this French movie that I think Dark Knight Rises was inspired by, and it has a lot to do with like economics and poverty and
Yeah,
such. And I think a lot of the visuals in the final fight scene, like with the snow,
yeah,
was specifically inspired by that movie. I don't have more information, so I can't give you enough
okay,
on that. But I know, and I definitely know what you mean. It definitely like that whole the whole plot, the whole everything that happens to Batman with like the even that whole Wall Street scene isn't
yeah,
really all that engaging,
yeah,
and it's one of the first scenes where he shows up, and it's like a subpar chase scene. I think it's probably I don't know. He's got that weird light gun. Remember?
yeah, yeah.
I don't even really remember. He's like chasing the people on the motorcycles.
Is
Yeah,
it?
it's a very
I'm trying to remember
uncompelling
when
part
that
of the movie.
chasing happens. I thought that chasing happened before the stock stuff.
I'm realizing that I this is Rises is probably the movie I should have watched instead of Begins,
Yeah, that's
especially
all good.
since it's the most fresh in your mind. Um, I can't really comment a whole lot, I guess, on the individual things other than the things I already brought up.
Okay. Well, we haven't talked about Catwoman yet.
We also haven't talked about Michael Caine as Alfred in general,
That's
which is
true,
noteworthy.
and I have a couple comments on that as well. Um,
Okay,
but
where do you want to start?
let's go with let's start with Catwoman because that's specific to this film, and then Alfred is kind
Actually,
of good overall. What's
can
up?
we get back to those? I
What's up?
think the best. I would just want to get this out. I mean, I
Okay.
don't have anything specific I want to say.
All right.
All I can really say is I can't contribute very specifically about Rises. All I can say is how I feel about it in general.
Okay.
I think a lot of third superhero movies have like that bad movie kind of stigma.
Yeah.
I think this one breaks away from that. I think it's still a good movie. It's just obviously the weakest of the three. I'm mostly enjoying the movie for the most part as like a sequel, as like these are the events that happen after the Dark Knight.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weak Batman as a Batman movie, but as like a story, I think it's fine. I just
Well.
my main as far as okay, the convolution of the plot
Yeah.
and then the last third of the movie are my
Yeah.
main issues. Once Batman gets his back broken,
Yeah.
the movie kind of I think Bane accidentally breaks the movie too.
But that's in the first third of the movie.
I doesn't he get his back broken like in this like at the last second third? I feel like there's like
I
a
don't know.
third of the movie
I felt
after he
like
gets
that was the end of Act One.
well anyway,
But
right
yeah.
after Batman gets his back broken and everyone's dealing with things up to when Batman comes back, I feel like everything after that is just so rushed. So much more rushed than anything that happens in Dark Knight or Batman Begins. I just
When
feel
do you
like
feel it's rushed?
after Batman gets his back broken,
Oh, see,
and
that's when I
then
feel like it drags.
it drags because there's a lot of movie, but a lot of elements are just being shoved in. I think Batman
Okay.
has to recover and escape in a really small amount of time without much of medical help. And then there's this whole like police situation going on,
Yeah.
and not I don't know, not a whole lot happens.
Well, yeah, that's what
Uh,
I'm saying. Like for me, that doesn't feel rushed because not a whole lot happens. A lot of time happens both in the movie. Months go by.
well, I feel like there's like another. I don't- They could have done more with the stuff that they had.
Yeah.
It could have filled like another, basically like another movie, but I don't know. A lot of just nothing lands.
Yeah, I feel like just
Nothing.
that middle
Nothing.
section between the time that Batman gets his bat broke and the time that he comes back, right? Everything
I
that
like the final
happens,
fight scene.
yeah, yeah, everything that happens after Batman leaves Gotham is taken away from Gotham, and everything that happens, up until he returns to Gotham, everything that happens in between that time, I feel like just kind of drags. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of movie in that time. That's like almost the whole second act of the movie, where like nothing really happens, but it takes a long time for nothing to happen.
There's like this underground effort with Gordon and the rest of the cops who are trying to hide
Yeah.
and also start a resistance, but it it's so I don't know, it's so bare, and it's mixed in with other things that I can't even remember, like Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah, I mean they're
He,
just investigating and trying to figure out Bane and trying to find out his plot and trying to find out where the bomb is and stuff like that and they're building a little underground. It almost becomes like a whole other kind of movie altogether. It almost becomes like this building of a resistance force, underground resistance force against this tyranny Bane who
I
took
guess maybe
over.
that's what I'm feeling and why I'm calling it rushed.
And so it's like almost a whole different. It's almost not even Batman anymore, though. That's the problem. Is it's almost this
Yeah,
whole other movie
it's
within
trying
the
to be
movie.
so epic that it's not even Batman anymore.
Um, yeah. So that's
But
that's
anyway,
that's
we
my
can
problem.
get back to Catwoman and Alfred if you want.
Yeah. So it's so Catwoman is actually an aspect I really enjoy in this movie.
Yeah, it surprised me.
Yeah. When I found out, now I didn't have a lot of reservations in Anne Hathaway, not the way I did with Heath Ledger. It was still
Uh-huh.
kind of a surprising casting. I'm like, oh, that's kind of an interesting casting, Anne Hathaway. Um, I didn't completely reject it or really even feel like she couldn't be Catwoman the way I did about Heath Ledger. Um, I think Heath Ledger would be a horrible Catwoman, but no, no. But even with like having just n- no real expectations, but I didn't have negative expectations either.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I still thought she did a really good job at being like even her first introduction in the movie. She's being this like maid to Bruce, and at first she seems like um what's the word where like Bruce kind of catches her, but you don't know she stole yet, and you
Oh,
think and she's like playing very innocent, like oh I'm
mhm.
sorry I didn't know kind of thing, right? And you like believe her, like I don't know, like for me it's very believable. And
Yeah,
then and
absolutely.
then when Bruce calls her out on the necklace, her whole demeanor changes.
Yeah,
And
she's really good.
the way, yeah, and so again, that's just a testament to good acting and whatnot, and her whole demeanor changes into this like kind of like thief, and she even like kicks Bruce's cane out from under him, and you know, and then just does a backflip out the window, and it's like okay, that's cool. That was like a cool Catwoman. And then from there, and then I liked almost everything in her, um, in how she played Catwoman. Um,
I agree.
so yeah, so I really like that. Do you have anything
It caught
else?
me off guard too. I feel I was basically in the same boat that you were. Like, oh, Anne Hathaway, I'm not so sure about this. I think I was a little bit more reserved than you were. But yeah, there's just no complaints with her as Catwoman. I think those first couple of scenes with her were probably the best. Like when she has that politician in the bar and she's pretending to cry and be all helpless and everything.
Oh yeah,
It was
yeah,
a
that
really
was
good
good too.
moment.
That was good too.
I guess my only complaint is no claws and no whip, but in a Christopher Nolan Batman movie, it's a little bit more acceptable than it was with the Batman,
Yeah,
with the
I
world
feel
that
like
it was
she had
brought
a
up in.
whip.
But did she have a
I don't
whip?
know if she really used it though.
I don't remember her clawing anyone or using any whip. She had goggles that kind of turned into cat ears,
Yeah, yeah, which I liked. I
which I
liked
kind of
that
like. Yeah,
for this movie.
as far
I,
as like
I I feel like I
an
remember
aesthetic.
seeing her have a whip, like swirled up on her. I don't. I can't remember her actually using a whip though.
I, I just
But
don't know.
anyway, yeah, but
That would
no, but
be
I like her fight
very,
scenes.
yeah.
I like
Oh,
her dilemma of
uh-huh.
like, should I just leave Gotham? But she doesn't. She actually does come back and helps Bruce, fight. Um, which
I like how she was totally just just about to shoot those people until Batman knocks the gun out of her hands. She's like a totally different kind of
oh yeah, and she
fighter. I
yeah.
was gonna say hero, but
Well, she even makes a comment of like this whole guns thing. I don't think I'm on board with that. Like your
mhm.
whole like no guns thing.
Which is weird because she used his guns, but whatever. That was
um,
like I don't know how you're so against guns, but you put it on your motorcycle.
yeah, yeah,
Just use it as a tool, I guess.
yeah. Um, I liked the Batwing.
Oh yeah,
And so he has the Batwing, and he basically gives her the motorcycle. Um,
it's weird that it's so realistic of a series, but they decided to use the Batwing.
yeah, but it
I don't
still
know.
worked. I feel
It
like it
it did
worked.
still work. I don't know if you. I don't know if this was the intention, but I'm pretty sure that first scene where we see them fly away in the Batwing, there's a little note in the music that kind of sounds like the Tim Burton Bat theme. I think I'd
Huh.
have to rewatch it again.
I don't recall noting that when I saw it when I watched it yesterday.
It, the moment I'm talking about happens right after that fight scene on the rooftop, and they run away from Bane. Um,
Hmm.
and it's just like a wordless moment where they're flying through the city.
Okay.
But anyway, so yeah, I guess we're pretty unanimous on Catwoman.
Yeah. Michael Caine as Alfred. Um, I really liked him as Alfred in the first two.
Is there an issue with the third one?
In the third one, he comes off so whiny. Um, and it's at no point
I don't think I'll be able to disagree with you.
at no point do they really have a good relationship in the third one. There's not really a good Alfred Bruce like relation like in the
They
beginning.
fight.
Yeah, well that's what I mean.
Mhm.
It's an antagonistic relationship. It's not a encouraging. I always
Mm,
think of like as like yeah, he kind of gives his sarcastic banter here and there, which I like in the other movies. But in here, he just comes off very lectury and put downy, and, and it's not that he's necessarily wrong about some of the things he's saying, because it's coming out of a place of concern, and it's like, look, you don't need to be Batman anymore. Like, you need to, find out another way to do this. That's his big thing. Is like do this as Bruce Wayne. Don't do this as Batman. This is before Bane becomes a big problem.
mhm.
Um, and so then Um, and then he quits and he leaves. And so again, he's barely even in the movie. Like the major characters who were in this movie aren't barely even in Dark Knight Rises.
Mm,
Right?
you're
Gordon's
right.
barely in it. Bruce and Batman are barely in it. Michael Caine, Alfred is barely in it because then he quits in the movie, and that's near the beginning of the movie when they get into this kind of argument after he takes on being the Batman again. Um, and
They
it's
have that nice moment at the very end, but
in the
that's
yeah,
that's not
which
the movie.
which
That's not.
pays
I mean,
to
that's not
the
the whole
argument because
movie.
in the argument he says, "I wish you never returned to Gotham. I wish I always had this fantasy that I was in France or wherever he was, and I saw you at the stable, and we didn't have to say anything, and I just knew you were okay. Which then that's how the movie ends. And, and that was pretty much the only good interaction that they had is when they don't even
Yeah,
talk to
that's
each
only
other.
2 seconds. It's not like a compelling scene with engaging dialogue
Right.
or
And so he
anything.
just comes off he's not really encouraging and it's just very it just comes off like sad. And then when he thinks Bruce is dead, I mean he's mourning and obviously I mean I get that, but it just again, it just comes off very whiny. It doesn't come off as mourning, it comes off as whiny.
I get what you're saying. Like, it's still Michael Caine, and he's still a good actor, but we don't get all the good character stuff that we got from the first two movies.
Yeah. So I liked
It's
him a
it's
lot
just
in the
not written into the script.
yeah, I liked him a lot in the first two. Yeah, yeah, and it's a script problem. Um I liked him a lot in the first two. In the third one, he just bugs me. And it's not that Michael Caine. Yeah, I mean it's definitely not the actor thing. I like Michael Caine as an actor, and I liked him as Alfred. I didn't like him in the third. I didn't like Alfred. I didn't like Alfred in the third movie.
I never even thought of that. I'm probably next time I watch the movie, I'm going to be seeing how Alfred does, and I'm probably going to feel the same way.
Yeah. So,
Hopefully, it won't be too whiny to me though.
um, but other than that, I liked Michael Caine a lot. As Alfred.
They probably have the best relate. Ooh, I don't know. Would they have? I was going to say The Dark Knight probably has their best relationship, but Batman Begins is
I think I
he's like
think I think
consoling him
I
like a
think Batman
child and everything.
Begins is the best, where they have like a best relationship.
I
Just
just don't like that line where he's like, where little kid Bruce Wayne says, "I miss them," and I hate it in movies where the actor says something and then repeats it for gravitas. Uh, little Bruce Wayne is like, "I miss them, Alfred," and he goes, "So do I, Master Wayne. So do I." He says, "So do I"
yeah,
twice.
yeah,
It's always bugged me. I
yeah.
just wanted to point that out.
I don't know.
It's just
I
so
don't mind that.
dramatic for the sake of drama. It just
Yeah,
brings me out a little bit.
okay,
But
maybe.
that's really hardly worth
But I could
bringing up.
see
I just
people
wanted to say it.
saying that in real life, though. Like for me, that does stick me out because I could
Yeah,
see
if you're
people
trying to
saying that.
imitate a movie, I don't know.
In the second one, in Dark Knight, he there are times where he challenges Bruce on a couple things.
When I
Um,
was in Burma,
but it works. Yeah, I mean, for me, I feel like it serves a purpose to help um Batman figure out how to like beat Joker. Because one of the things he says like what did you expect to happen? Like you knew things were gonna get worse before they got better, and so
that's a great
he's
line.
kind of coming down on Bruce, but at the same time, it's there to encourage Bruce.
He also, in that very same scene, gives him advice on how to deal with someone like him. Some men just want to watch the world burn, so you
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
really
So well,
lose
that's
them.
the
You
whole
gotta
right. That's
think of something else.
his whole backstory. Kind of talk about that person, and it's like now the mob. You know, he's kind of explaining. He's like, look, like this has happened because you're taking down the mob, and so you kind of put the mob in the corner. So now they are going to a person that they don't understand, and someone who you don't understand, right? And so and that actually serves not only him and his relationship, but it also serves for the audience to kind of understand the Joker. So kind of yeah. So yeah,
And
no
if a scene
issues.
like that happened in Rises, it would have just been him crying at him the whole time.
So yeah, so just then it yeah, so almost every yeah, there's just a lot in now I as a movie, I mean it's still watchable. Like
Hmm.
there's a lot there are parts where I am bored in it. There are
Yeah, I
parts
could see that.
where it kind of drags. But I mean it's still better than Batman Forever. It's still better than Batman and Robin, right?
Uh
It's
huh.
still as a drama, it's it's watchable.
It drops the ball, but there's some good fight scenes in it, and it's
Yeah,
Batman, so
yeah.
it's watchable.
There are redeemable aspects that maintain it. Um, there are aspects of the narrative, even though the plot is a mess. There are aspects of the plot that helps it maintain continuity with the trilogy. Because what it does do is it brings in a lot of elements from the previous two movies into this movie. A lot of elements of like Harvey Dent, which was all in Dark Knight,
Hmm.
and a lot of elements of the League of Shadows and Batman becoming Batman. Bruce, like again, just learning how to stand back up after a fall, right? And that was a lot of the elements from Batman Begins. Um, and so continuity wise, in terms as a trilogy, it has things going for it. And so those are some things I appreciate, which is interesting because those are also some of my complaints of the movie of how the majority of it is just a hodgepodge of the things that came before. Um, had the plot not centered so much on rehashing on that hodgepodge, I think playing homage and having that continuity could have worked in its favor. The problem was that that was all it was.
Yeah, it did kind of feel like a rehash,
Um,
and I still don't really understand Bane as a character much. I have to like think about it and work through the plot in my mind to really understand who he is and what's going on.
well, all he is ultimately, according to the plot that we have, is he is the protector of Talia, and so he's just doing what Talia wants. That's pretty much it.
There's this in the sewer fight scene.
Uh huh.
Um, it's like it's showing how Batman keeps punching him and nothing really phases Bane.
Yeah.
And then there's this moment where Bane's got Batman by the throat, holding him up off the ground, and Batman has this line where he's like, what does he say? And you were excommunicated by a gang of psychopaths. And then Bane stops for a second, and then punches Batman twice, like
Hmm.
out of anger. So I think what that little moment was trying to say was like Batman has been throwing all these punches this whole fight, but that little jab, that little quip was the strongest punch that he threw.
Hmm.
And but because it affected Bane emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the plot goes, does that even really make sense? Does he even care that he was
Well,
excommunicated?
see, the
Do we
problem
even
is in that moment of the script, that's who his character was. See,
so
his real
Bane
character
is like
wasn't who he was in that moment.
so
But
is
for the
Bane pretending or is the script
it
forgetting?
doesn't make sense because it's playing to the audience. It's not playing
Yeah.
to the plot. And that's the problem with this movie. Is plot since in that moment the audience is told that he is an outcast of the League of Shadows, in that moment that's what he really is and that's what he's all about. But in the end we realize that's really not what he's about. That I guess it's true. I don't think it's a lie. I
But then
guess
why would he
because
be so pissed about it? Why
right.
would it be something that affects
But
him?
I think for me that's a script issue. And the script issue being that's for the audience because all the audience knows right now is that's what he's about, and so he's playing as if that is the full truth because we don't even know that there is this more to it, and so it's almost as if the character changes based on where we are in the script, and that's bad script writing.
Yeah.
That's not organic to plot development. and
Hmm.
and that's a key indicator of that. Um, yeah, because I don't know. I mean, I guess he actually was part of the League of Shadows, and I guess he
How else would he
actually
be so trained? How else did
right,
he?
and I guess he actually was kicked out, and maybe that's why he was in prison. Now that I'm kind of thinking through this,
Yeah,
um,
but as the audience, we need to feel that struggle that he went through a little bit more to understand him as a character. I mean, as
yeah, like
is, we
why
don't
was
even
he
really
kicked
know
out
what
of the League
happened.
of Shadows? Because it
What?
really, like, why was he kicked out of the League of Shadows? Because
Yeah, what do you do?
at first it says he was too extreme,
Yeah,
which the
I
League
mean,
of Shadows
we
was
get
already extreme.
as an audience, I guess we get that. Like,
But was he really? Because we don't because he the only reason he's doing the stuff he's doing now is because of Talia. He's not
hmm,
doing it on
mhm.
his own motivation. He's not working the League of Shadows stuff on his own motivation here. Even though he claims to be the League of Shadows in that sewer scene.
Hmm.
But really, he's not. Even then, he's not. Even then, he's just a henchman of the League of Shadows, and he knows it. Like he, as a character, should know but the problem is in the plot at that point, that's not who he is.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot of the story that I have a problem with.
Yeah, and for me, that then transcends and affects a lot of other things.
And I definitely feel um, the dragging aspect that you mentioned.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I still like it as a movie, but oh, and I like Joseph Gordon-Levitt, but not in that movie. I don't think any of his scenes really work.
I didn't mind him.
It's
The
definitely not him. It's just the way he's being
the
used.
Robin tie-in was kind of weak, but I what I appreciate from the ending is the idea of passing on the legacy, passing on the mantle, passing the torch aspect that
Yeah.
Bruce is retiring, but he kind of gave
Mhm.
it to this Robin person
Mhm.
who
Which is what, he gonna own Wayne Manor now or what? Because that's where the Batcave is.
well, no, that Wayne Manor was donated to be an
Oh,
orphanage,
that's right.
and but he was giving coordinates to a cave, and that's how he finds this Bat Cave,
Oh, it's the new one.
I guess.
Oh, I missed that.
But yeah, he's given the coordinates to it, and there's a new bat signal that's been rebuilt that Gordon finds, meaning that there's going to be still a Batman for Gotham. It's just not going to be Bruce Wayne.
I think I missed that bat signal too.
Yeah, it's in the very end. The very
Okay.
end, like Gordon is surprised to see a new bat signal on top of the
Hmm.
building.
I like that final shot of Joseph Gordon-Levitt in the cave
Yeah,
with that thing rising.
yeah,
That's really beautiful.
yeah, and then that's how it ends. Is him becoming the new, in a sense, like we know it's implied. It's not. It's actually very implicit rather
Hmm.
than explicit, which is I can
I'm so
appreciate.
glad we didn't have to see him put on a Robin suit.
Yeah. Well, I don't think he's
I
actually Robin. I think he would be Batman. I think he's just gonna
Yeah,
be
I think
a
that's kind
Batman
of what they're going for.
because it's a
I don't
bat
think they
signal still.
intended to have a Robin,
Right.
even like even the idea.
Right. Yeah. The closest thing is again that homage of him being Robin is his actual name, his 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 real name that he doesn't actually go by.
I don't know how you feel, but I kind of don't want to see Robin in a Batman movie. At least not until like really late in an established series. I don't.
Uh, for me, it's not so much that I don't want to see it or want to see it. It's a matter of if they're going to do it, it needs to be done right.
Yeah, I mean, I'll like anything that's well done. I think I would just prefer to focus just on Batman. And Robin is always Robin. I mean, you can do Nightwing and I'll like it. Nightwing's cool.
Yeah, but in order to get to Nightwing, you have to have Robin.
Yeah, you can't skip Robin. I'm
um.
just saying, Nightwing's a lot cooler.
All right. Well, I think we've discussed everything we can. I don't
Just
have any.
about.
What's up?
Just about. I have written here for my Dark Knight. Um, yeah, I have the three movies, like the point of each three movies written down. So I'll say that.
Okay.
In Batman Begins, it was about him answering the call,
Okay.
learning what it takes to be Batman, and actions speak louder than words. And in the Dark Knight, it's about him learning the true meaning of Batman and what it the full costs. And here I have it written down. In Rises, it's about him learning to reconcile Bruce Wayne, the person, and everything that the Batman had to be, and putting that all to rest.
Hmm.
I guess we already discussed all that though.
Okay. Yeah. I guess I hadn't
He didn't
actually really
really
considered that
reconcile
theme.
Bruce Wayne. He didn't
Well,
really reconcile the whole Bruce Wayne thing, except for having put the Batman to rest, I guess.
yeah. Like being able.
So
Well,
we,
no. I mean that is actually kind of part of it. I hadn't really considered that before. Until you mentioned it just now, because part of the point of the movie was, yeah, he put Batman to rest, 8 years ago by the beginning of this movie, but he didn't really move on, and that's one of the things that Alfred points out is like you didn't go on living. Yeah,
Oh
you
yeah,
stopped
that's
being
right.
Batman, but you didn't go on living.
That's a line in the movie. I forgot.
And that happens in the beginning of the movie, and then what we do see is at the end of the movie he finally is able to put Batman away, and we see him in Paris or wherever he is, um, actually living a life. And so I hadn't really noticed that as a theme, which is unique to this movie. So I could appreciate that. The theme that I always noticed from this movie, it was just him relearning to get back up after a fall, which was the
Yeah,
same lesson that he learned in Batman Begins, and that
I
always bugged me.
imagine. I imagine Nolan meant something a little bit more. I don't quite know what it is.
I think you were onto something though. Him figuring out how to put Batman away and then living life after Batman, because that was his big struggle, I guess.
After everything that Batman had to be and learning to reconcile that as well.
So,
It's kind of like side note, like I watched like The Force Awakens,
hmm
the character Finn, he learns a lesson in the end, but to not be a coward and just like, to be a hero.
yeah,
When he picks up the lightsaber at the end, that's his character arc.
right,
What I didn't really like in The Last Jedi is he kind of learns the same
yeah,
lesson,
yeah, yeah,
but someone on the internet reviewed the movie and kind of pointed out that it's a different take on that lesson. In the first movie, it's all about him caring for Ray, like a specific person, someone he cares about,
hmm
other than himself. But in the Last Jedi, it's about him learning to go beyond himself and appreciating the cause, not just one other person that he cares about.
yeah,
So it's kind of like the same lesson but expanded
yeah.
ish. At least that's was the argument. So I'm wondering if that's what's going on here with the Dark Knight
Well, yeah.
Rises.
I mean, there was a little bit more to it too in Dark Knight Rises
Yeah.
than just that. And I think you were onto something as far as him learning to kind of move beyond Batman and still living life after he moves on from Batman. um,
It's just
yeah,
all the story elements that brought us to that were kind of clunky.
yeah, because that wasn't really thematic throughout the movie. It was a point mentioned in the beginning of the movie, and somewhat a theme in the beginning of the movie was how he was very reclusive and no one had seen him and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So,
well, I mean, it's
so
kind
that
of
was
strung
kind
out.
of that was established. There was a strong foundation there, but from that point to the time that Alfred leaves, because that's when Alfred basically quits, then that theme is basically dropped for the rest of the movie until the very end
Yeah, the very
with
very end.
him in Paris. Then it's like, oh yeah. So it wasn't really thematic like throughout the movie, but I
Mhm.
can see that being part of his arc, kind of, in this movie. I guess
It's something
it
else
it,
that
it
the
was
movie has.
there.
Yeah. Well,
Okay,
Rises is the weakest of the three, but I still enjoy it and it still has stuff. If I can like Batman Forever, then
yeah,
Rises has a good chance.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I do genuinely, ironically and unironically, like Batman Forever. It is,
I think Batman Forever is entertaining.
yeah,
I don't think it's a good
it
Batman
is
movie, but
entertaining.
it's
No,
entertaining. See, that's the thing. In that sense, I think Batman Forever is probably more entertaining than Dark Knight Rises
probably.
in
I
terms
mean,
of just
Rises is a better, you know,
it's a better
it's a better,
crafted movie in
it's
the
a,
sense
it's
of
much more
some of the
intelligent. That's for sure.
yeah, and that stuff. Anyway,
You're probably right though about Batman Forever being a more entertaining movie. And in the end, what are movies supposed to do?
yeah.
So, mm.
So anyway, all right.
But yeah, I wouldn't mind ending this anytime soon because I really, really have to pee.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm gonna
But
end
we
this
can.
stream. Um, so I'll end the stream here, and then if I could just talk real quick. So first of all, just end the stream. So appreciate everyone coming out. Appreciate all the comments, and I'll see you all next time.